Oddities, late night movies with Rob and Zack. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities where we're getting there, bro, Ben. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally, these projects gel. Most times, they crash hard into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm Zack.
I don't exist.
And if it wasn't for me, we'd all be spiked and sponged by now. We are continuing on with the Henry Selick series, his second theatrical film, none other than Roald Dahl's classic, James and the Giant Peach. So I think right off the bat, both Ben and Zack, you're fairly content that I decided not to sing one of the 5 songs in this movie for my opening quote. Is that fair to say?
Damn straight.
Yeah. I know you got a good voice, but...
Oh, thank you, Ben.
I can listen to that on Spotify. So.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Yes. So I also have to say that since there's a lot less songs in this movie compared to The Nightmare Before Christmas, they're more fleshed out. There's like Sally's song is pretty quick. Like if it's just me singing it, it's maybe like a little less than 90 seconds. What could you imagine me doing like a full 3-minute rendition of like the Eating the Peach song or something like that?
I'd like to see it happen.
I'd hang up.
Oh, but it should be good. It should be good. So like I said, the second theatrical Henry Selick film. And just like we did last week, Ben, I want to throw it over to us, you and I, to say, hey, if you're into the Henry Selick series so far, if you've already listened to Nightmare Before Christmas, if you maybe get through this one, you want to hear some more info about Henry Selick, maybe hear about what else he's directed, his short films, his TV shows, his MTV bumpers, all that stuff. That's over on the Patreon for this month, where Ben and I discuss the history of Henry Selick and his hopeful future. So it's some good stuff. Go check it out if you want a little more of a complete picture of Henry Selick in this series that we're doing. Anything else that I leave out, or anything else you wanted to mention about the Patreon, Ben?
No, I think that's pretty solid. Come check it out. Come give us your support. Let us know that you like what we're doing.
For sure, for sure. Now, I guess, what better way to get into it? Of course, we'll have to talk about our context with James and the Giant Peach. But there's something that jumped out to me right off the bat that I had to bring up. And while I thought for a long time I really did love this movie, it turns out that they commit a horrible, horrible crime right at the beginning. They say that the Empire State Building is the tallest building in the world. At the time of making this movie, that would not be the case. It would be the 3rd tallest building in the world, behind the World Trade Center and the Willis Tower in Chicago. So, 0 out of 10, unsubscribe. James the Giant Peach is unwatchable. What do we want to do for snacks this week?
So, this movie was set in the past, though, despite whenever it was made, right? Like
yes. So, this movie... And I'm sure we'll get into it more. When we talk about our context, we'll have to talk about Roald Dahl as well. This is based on a Roald Dahl book. I think both the book, from what I looked into, and the movie are very ambiguous about what time in which they take place. Of course, you can get a sense of what you're looking at, but apparently there's some newspapers at the end of the movie that say 1949 when they get to New York. And if this movie takes place in 1949, then absolutely Empire State Building would have been the tallest building in the world. But this, I don't think there's anything really that says explicitly, what time period this takes place in the book, in the canon source material. And I was thinking back and looking into it. I think, when you talk about the tallest buildings in the world, we might think Empire State Building because that did hold the record for something like 40 years. I think it also might have been Roald Dahl glorifying New York and big cities, like Roald Dahl saying, oh, the Empire State Building's the tallest building in the world. His kids' books became so popular that he became kind of the arbiter of that notion type of thing. I feel like even today, if you ask some people, I don't know, do people know the Burj Khalifa? Like, are people aware of that? Or still people in America go, hey, Empire State Building. Well, why is that the tallest? Well, because the Twin Towers got knocked down, so that's just the next one up, right?
Too soon.
Too soon? Is it too soon from 9/11 or too soon from the 2001 Fort year that led up to 9/11, Zach?
A little column A, a little column B.
It's too close to the next 9/11.
Whoa. Now that is prescient.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, I just had to bring that up because the Empire State Building thing, I went down that rabbit hole just thinking about that. But okay, let's get over that. Let's get past this sin of movie making, and let's just jump into it. Context. I'm actually really excited to hear once again, just like last week, this is a movie that I basically grew up with. And it's something that Zack and I have never talked about, I don't think. I don't think we've ever, really gotten into Henry Selick in the years that we were in high school together and such. So, Zack, what's your history or background with James and the Giant Peach? And Roald Dahl in general? Were you a fan of the books? Or is this something you watched a lot back in the day? Throw it at us.
No, I'm aware of this film as part of, 90s nostalgia. I vaguely remember seeing it. For some reason, I feel like I saw this film in theaters, even though I don't think I really did.
Wow.
It's weird. I kind of don't have that much context for this. As I rewatched this for the recording, certain parts of it kind of just like pinged my oh wait, I remember this.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly Mecha-Shark versus Giant Peach. I remember very vividly.
That would be the remake title, right? If somebody remade James the Giant Peach, they would call it Mecha-Shark versus Giant Peach.
Yeah, it's coming to Disney Plus this fall.
Starring Tara Reid.
Really... Yeah, sorry, Tara Reid, if only. Yeah, it's kind of my only extent to this. I remember the Mecha-Shark scene. Other than that, my context is kind of non-existent. I've been aware of this film forever as somebody who obviously grew up in the 90s, but it begins and ends there. I wish I had more to share.
Okay.
Not really, though. Kind of a film that has flown under the radars. We'll definitely talk about in the coming moments.
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned Mecha-Shark. We're going to have to talk a lot about the Mecha-Shark in the ocean. I love it.
I highly suspect that when Disney Plus makes that animated series, Mecha-Shark vs. Giant Peach, it's going to be a lot like He-Man Masters of the Universe Revelation on Netflix, and only the first 10 minutes is going to have Mecha-Shark, and the rest of it's not. People are going to be really pissed about it.
Right on. So, okay. I kind of figured, since we've never really talked about this, and I think just to get your history maybe with the book, Zach, or were you ever a Roald Dahl fan of the children's novels, or maybe the other way around, you were into his adult stuff, and you really got into anti-Semitism when you were 8?
Definitely not the latter.
Okay.
My extent to Roald Dahl, I don't remember ever reading any of his books. My extent to film adaptations of his is I can remember seeing the Tim Burton remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is definitely a cinemati at some point. Definitely for worse, not better. Yeah, that's kind of like I said. I've seen a lot of adaptations of his work, but I've never been a fan of his. Not because of any sort of disdain. It's just I'd say in the apathy camp than anything else. I do not find anything his truly enlightening.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten that sense over the years. I know for a while now I've always said to Zach on this podcast that I'd love to do a series on Roald Dahl inspired movies or movies based off his stuff, and I always have great ideas for what to do. And Zach's response has always been, I don't know, lukewarm might be too kind of a response. Just
indifferent.
almost
I think
indifference.
Yeah. It's indifference. I don't care either way.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, and so now, Ben, I think you're the one I'm really excited to hear some history about, because way back when, near the start of the 2001 Fort year, I think when we were just getting into it, I said something to you. I'm like, okay, what we're doing after the Fort year is we're gonna finish up the Henry Selick series, because we've done Monkey Bone now. He's got 3 more movies. And I think, Ben, you asked what those movies were. And, of course, Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, James and the Giant Peach was one I mentioned. And I think right off the bat, you were like, I did not like that movie. And so I think this was the first one that I had stated that you were like, oh, no, that movie's not that great. This was before the whole debacle of the Facebook messages from last week for Nightmare Before Christmas. So I have to know now, Ben, that you've rewatched it. Is this something you saw when you were younger and you didn't like? Or was this something that was shown to you by somebody who had nostalgia for it? Because I know a lot of people nowadays that when I mention Henry Selick, James and the Giant Peach, they're like, I love James and the Giant Peach when I was younger. Did you see it when you were younger and come to dislike it? Or was it kind of a later in life thing that you were shown it and you were like, why are they singing about, foods and whatnot?
No, so I saw it when I was young, really young. I don't know when it came out. I saw it when I was at some age that's consistent with its release date.
Okay.
And the animation and such just really, I don't know, it had some kind of physical impact on me, and I did not like the way that I felt watching the animation. I do have to say that my take on it this time around is way different. I had a way different experience with it this time around. Yeah,
I know you said stuff, and in our Patreon episode, we discuss a lot how you always say that some of this stop motion and claymation stuff has always turned you off from looking at it. And this, I think of the of like the stuff we get from Henry Selick, this is the most jarring. Because in Nightmare Before Christmas, I think it's like, oh, it's fun. It's like I'm in a Spirit of Halloween store for, 70 minutes. And then I see elves, and it's things that you're just like fancifully related to. And you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Coraline, I think, is something very similar, like the dancing mice and things like that. Monkey Bone, we talked about how there's a little more jarring imagery. But as a kid, not just you, Ben, but I think for a lot of people, I could see that when James goes into the peach and the twist from live action to animation happens, and then you just have giant bugs talking to the character, and it's even played as like scary, and he's like, don't eat me, that type of thing. I could see this being like an uneasy experience for a lot of kids, you know what I mean?
Right, and that's more or less what it was. So, despite what I told you about having not liked it then, my opinions about it, I don't want it to seem like I'm inconsistent. I just am no longer 8, and I have a different opinion about what I saw. So,
I like that. Ben's doing the whole. It's like I used to not like Henry Selick, and then I turned 9. On the same topic, did you read a lot of Roald Dahl in your life when you were younger, anything like that, or is this movie just kind of been? Did you even know it was like a book adapted from or anything like that?
So I did know that this was adapted from a Roald Dahl book. I looked up Roald Dahl to like, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about what I found when I looked up Roald Dahl because It's a little bit strange. But I looked him up to see what other books he had written in case I did read any of them. I remember reading BFG, the big fucking giant, at some point as a kid. I remember not really liking that book very much. I remember finding it pretty boring as a kid. So I don't know if that would hold up now or not. But I do want to mention that I just typed Roald Dahl into Google, and the first one is his collection of 16 books, box set, whatever. The second result is a Goodnight Trump audiobook, and I don't understand that at all. The third result is H.P. Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu, animated like a Dr. Seuss book.
Ooh.
So I don't know why that is on here. The fourth one is a book called Have Your Come and Eat It Too.
Okay.
And the fifth one, and this is where I'm going to stop. The fifth one is a book called Wonderland Down the Rabbit Hole with a very slutty Alice on the cover of it. So I don't know what Roald Dahl has done to get associated with these other properties. Because I looked at him, he's not the author of any of them.
No, definitely not. I guess that is a prime question for Zach. How many of the books Ben just mentioned were on your top reading list of last year? These all sound there right up your alley, Zach.
None of the above.
Zach's like, they're not on my top readers list yet because I haven't finished them. They're all still on my nightstand.
Exactly, right after Galaxy of Fear.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of crazy, Ben. I did not know about that. I've talked my history with Roald Dahl before when we did the Matilda episode in the Danny DeVito series. I'm pretty sure this is now going to be the second thing we're watching and discussing that is from something adapted from a Roald Dahl work. And like I mentioned before, I hope we can get to some more. I think there's some great comparisons between the 1990 witches and the 2020 witches. I think there's some great comparisons between Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So hopefully we get it. And as I'm always pitching, Zach, people don't know this, the anthology film 4 Rooms, where one of these segments is directed by Quentin Tarantino, is based on Roald Dahl's more adult novels. So I think that'd be fun to cover as well. There goes Zach's indifference. So I think with that being said, Ben said he's warmed up to this over the years because he's not 8 anymore. I've said this is another thing. I grew up with this movie. I love this movie. But Zach, I guess this question for you, since you seem to have this not as a grand history with it or anything like that. What'd you think? What'd you think of this, 80-minute or 75-minute kids movie with some songs and animation? It's watching these two back to back, A Nightmare Before Christmas and this back to back. I'm like, man, isn't it kind of nice when movies are less than an hour and a half?
I'm glad you said it because that was my probably favorite attribute of this film. I'm like, man, this is like a breeze. This is like a 60-minute movie. You're in and out the door. I know in the past, Rob and I have talked about the notion of anybody who makes a movie over 2 hours should be forced to drink a big gulp and then sit through their film. I think maybe we should shorten that to 70 minutes because part of me is just like, man, this is such a breeze. It's just kind of it comes and goes. It's inoffensive. But no, all joking aside, when it comes to this movie, oh God, this is one of those films I would definitely classify as something I admire more than I like.
Okay.
The craftsmanship is incredible, especially for mid-90s stop motion. You can see how, like, on a technical level, this is like leaps and bounds better than Nightmare Before Christmas. But at the same time, though, this film feels so like it reminded me a lot. It reminded me a lot of our Watchmen Hack Snyder episode in that, like, it feels so beholden to the source material. It almost is hamstrung by it, and that, like, things just happen in this movie just because it has to happen because, like, oh, it worked as a children's novel as opposed to a cinematic experience. I imagine we'll definitely kind of delve into some of the more just bizarre sequences of this film that just have to happen because that's what the story tells us to.
Yeah.
But no, I think I definitely admire the craftsmanship more than the film as a complete experience.
Okay. No, I know what you're saying. And this is some of my favorite stop motion animation. You know, I really love a lot of the design. But the thing that stood out to me when I watched it, you know, in preparation for this recording, this discussion, I love the look of the live action stuff as well. Like the ants, like a house on a hill that's so, you know, just Gothic-esque, and they live away from the town and all that stuff. I really love just the smoky, or I guess foggy it would be, just aesthetic of this weird hill they live on. And it's just all, I mean, you know, leave it to Roald Dahl to just give a kid the absolute worst life, you know? But that really stood out to me, the whole design of the of reality, you know, before we get into the peach and before things switch over to stop motion. That really stood out to me as just so drab. And of course, that's what they're going for, the big change in color palette when they get into the peach and James goes on his adventure. But it was just like depressing watching, you know, Sponge and Spiker just like hate each other, hate the kid, and all that type of stuff. Very, very depressing. But like I said, once again, Roald Dahl, it's like the beginning of Matilda. What I think a lot of people don't remember about Matilda is that, like, the antagonist is the school principal who puts kids in, like, a tomb with spikes in it when they're bad. Like, they don't pull any punches. Like, Roald Dahl is like, yeah, this kid's life is fucked. They're making him chop wood in the beginning of James the Giant Peach.
As I was watching this, I kept getting like those Harry Potter like vibes,
Definitely.
and I was just like, man, J.K. Rowling is like God, her foundation is kind of hollow in that regard. The idea of just having like an abused child living in like a basement.
Well, especially a British one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad you said it because I'm just watching this and I'm like, man, this is just like Harry Potter on a silver platter. I'm like, maybe like I know like right now J.K. like Rowling is like definition of somebody who's like they keep trying to cancel her. And she just won't die regardless of how how hard social media tries.
Yeah.
But man, it's just kind of like it's yeah. There's so much here that like it's one of those things that's like happens a lot in contemporary cinema, in that like we see things as like regurgitated, but actually this was kind of more before like everything kind of just picked the bones clean.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you bring that up. That was something I did, the Harry Potter connection I did not think of because I haven't thought of Harry Potter in so long, but you're absolutely right. Like, you know, he has to do all the chores. He has a terrible life. He wants to play with the other kids and can't, that type of thing. And then instead of Hagrid, we get Pete Postlethwaite come to him in this movie and give him magic.
Gives him magic Rotelli, Rob.
Magic Rotelli, which I had to write all this down because it's such a wonderful. Well, first, I don't think I've gotten to say it on this podcast. I think I said it once on Knights of Vader when we were you had me on there discussing something, Zach. I love it. I love me a good Pete Postlethwaite. The Postlethwaite is over for Cinemodities. We get to talk about him. I don't think because we never did Inception. We'll do The Town one day because that's a Ben Affleck movie, but I don't think we've ever had any other Pete Postlethwaite. I think it was Alien Cubed that we talked about him on, Knights of Vader, if I'm remembering correctly. But the thing is, you're right, he gives him magic Rotelli, but he describes it as 1,000 crocodile tongues boiled in the skull of a dead witch for 20 days and 20 nights, and the fingers of a young monkey, the gizzard of a pig, the beak of a parrot, and 3 spoonfuls of sugar. Let stew for a week, and then let the moon do the rest. I have to say, I love this movie for giving us a food and the recipe for it as well. Isn't that wonderful?
Made to order for the Cinemodities restaurant.
Yes, absolutely. And then, yeah, I mean, also in the Harry Potter connection, just to mention it, Mr. Earthworm, who I never knew until rewatching it for this, or maybe I knew but had forgotten or something, is voiced by David Thewlis, who goes on to be Werewolf Man in Harry Potter, whose character's name I'm forgetting.
Oh.
And Rob, in what other movie does he star in that was a quasi-cinemati's title?
Geez, he's been in so much. Because, my...
involves Richard Stanley.
Oh! Lost Soul, well, Island Dr. Moreau.
There you go. Good old David Thewlis.
Yeah, I forgot about that too. See, the only thing I can think of David Thewlis recently is he's the lead voice in Anomalisa, so I get to talk about that again this week.
Oh, jeez.
No, but it's great. Okay, the Harry Potter thing, I didn't pick up on at all, but you're absolutely right. Like, this movie kind of has that, at least the vibes of like the first book and stuff. Well, no, now that you say it, I'm thinking of that the rhino in the clouds rushing towards the camera, and I'm sure I've seen that with the Dementors in Harry Potter before, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. No, okay. So I think that this is something I wanted to mention, which we talked about way back when we did Monkey Bone. Of course, Monkey Bone is Henry Selick's movie after this one. I remember talking about in that discussion how he originally wanted it to be the real world would be live action, and then when Stu goes into the coma, Brendan Fraser goes into the coma, it's all in stop motion. So live action, stop motion switch. And of course they blended them together in Monkey Bone. This is, I think I mentioned, this is exactly, what he was thinking of with Monkey Bone. And it makes sense that the studio, whoever kind of pulled him back from that, because this, when they get into the Peach and everything becomes stop motion, it becomes pretty simple. It's like our 5 characters and James. They're just like kind of in this one set that has a lot of motion and a lot of like action go on in it, but it really is more basic. And I could totally see why a studio might not be like, yeah, let's not, make a whole universe stop motion. Let's just make the inside of this Peach stop motion. But man, when it switches, like I already said, that first 20-minute about live action segment, I think it looks great. It looks depressing as hell, but it works so well. When they get into the stop motion for the Peach and the whole world with our characters and things like that, that's where I just really fall in love with this animation style. Like, I just love the way this works. And I don't think I was ever taken aback by it or, turned off by the animation or the bugs when I was younger. But man, now I just see them all as their own little great characters. Like Mr. Centipede from Brooklyn talking about New York. That's very near and dear to my heart. That stuff's so funny.
We're going to New York City!
New York? They love me there!
Wonderful! They've got a whole park full of leaves for you, Miss Ladybug.
Central Park!
And loads of dark hiding places.
Nightclubs!
And museums and concerts.
Not to mention Yankee Stadium.
Well, what about me?
Why, they've got miles and miles of underground tunnels.
The subway!
My father says it's the place where dreams come true.
And I think really what I realized, maybe something that's stuck with me all these years, I really think this movie is kind of wholly hilarious. Like, I'm laughing at a lot of this movie. I mean, it's a short movie, like we said, but once our characters really get into just, like, talking with each other and sharing that chemistry, I'm kind of all about it, Like, the things, like, just some random lines I think of are when Mr. Earthworm says something like, one of the ants split his brother right down the middle, and so now he has 2 half-brothers. And it's stuff like that I don't know, I'm just giggling while I'm watching this movie. More so than I think a lot of other Henry Selick things. You know what I mean?
I want to know that when I did hear that line, I'm like, oh man, Rob's going to eat this up. Like, there's numerous lines of dialogue in this where certain characters say certain things. I'm just like, God damn it, Rob's going to eat this up like on a silver platter.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Rob loves quirky, clever non sequiturs.
There's another one. It might be my favorite in the whole movie, but later on when they're lost in the either very north or very, very far south, Mr. Grasshopper says something like, "What's your latitude? What's your longitude?" And Mr. Centipede's response is, "That's personal, bub." Yeah, there's a lot of jokes in here that just I'm glad Zack picked up on it, because I'm just like, this is right down the middle. Just like, it's not humor that's so dumb that I'm laughing at myself for laughing at it. It somehow rides this rail of just being like so basic. I don't know, kind of like a lot of it comes off to me as like dad jokes or something like that.
Definitely dad jokes. Yeah, the half brother one in particular is very dad-ish.
Sure. The one there's one near the end when I think they're getting blown off course by the rhino, and Mr. Centipede's like, "We'll wind up in Jersey," and it's just like stuff like that I am all about for sure.
I'm glad you brought up the Jersey reference, because I'm like, oh, at some point they're gonna be like, I was convinced. Like I said, I had no memory of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about being like blown off course. I'm like, someone's gonna make a New Jersey reference, and I thought it was gonna be a little bit more specific, and like, oh, instead of New York, we're gonna end up in something like Newark.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, there it is, and like he says New Jersey. And I'm like, God, like that's the thing, that's the thing about this movie that I find so kind of like fascinating, yet it kind of infuriates me. In that this film has such a level of craftsmanship, because in research for this,
mm-hmm.
I found a Discovery Kids like behind the scenes like 5-minute like making of video.
Okay.
And you see the level of just like craftsmanship that went into like Mr. Centipede, and like how like just like so many tiny screws they had to like specifically fabricate to make his character. And then you have such a like just a lowest common denominator joke because of it. And I think that's where my frustrated part of this movie comes from. Is just that, like, obviously Henry Selick was making this under the Disney banner,
mm-hmm.
and I know we've talked a lot in the previous episode, and I think Ben and Rob talk about it in the forthcoming episode, Turnstile Alert. But it's the idea, like, I get why he is so hostile to Disney right now, in that like so much effort goes into the fabrication of this movie, yet you're once again hamstrung by such corny middle of the road jokes.
I know.
Not saying they're bad, but just like they're so just kind of just like boilerplate humor that's meant to be inoffensive and just lowest common denominator. Yeah,
and I think this is something all three of us have talked about, maybe not together ever, but in the various times we talk about animation. You know, Henry Selick has always been one of those people that if you talk to him, or if you see him talk about animation, he's always one of the ones, as with many animators, that are saying, oh, we could be doing so much more with this art form than we currently are. But like you just said, Zach, it falls into that whole kind of thing of, well, in North America, if you're making something animated, it's going to have to be for kids. It's going to have to be that, lowest common denominator type of joke, that basic inoffensive type of joke. And I'm with you. You make a good point. I'm upset about this movie as well, that while I do find it funny and I'm giggling at it, there is just so much craft that I wish this could be something more grand, or, more meaningful towards the art form, rather than just being another Disney kids movie type of thing. And that, so I'm with you. I'm conflicted on that sense as well, that I kind of, I love the craft. This isn't the funniest movie I've ever seen. Some of the things I like roll my eyes at, so, jokes I roll my eyes at a little bit. But you're right, it falls under that Disney issue of, well, hey, if we're making these, they have to be, easily edible for children, bite-sized. Don't make them anything too crazy. Maybe there's a little bit the parents will get. But then at the end of the day, they just want to pump it out and re-release it and make their money from it, type of thing. I think it's the same thing all three of us have said we're bummed about with animation, that we have to go overseas for, decent animation that pulls everything together, type of thing.
Yeah, but this is the weird thing about this movie, though, is that it was in a period where Disney was 96. At this point, the Disney Renaissance is over. You're in Pocahontas territory. You're in Hercules territory. So they have the money. They didn't have to play things safe anymore.
Sure.
That's the thing I find interesting, is that this film was in production the same time you had Disney at its just most creatively ambitious in the early 90s.
Oh yeah.
And yet this film, out of everything Henry Selick has done, is the most safe. On a narrative script level.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is, like you said, so tied to the source material, so that inherently also does make it childish, because it was a children's novel or children's storybook type of thing. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Compared to all the others, the four we have, this is definitely the tamest, I would say. But at the same time, there's a lot of craft in recreating the art style of the book. I'm pretty sure that's almost what they're going for identically from the stills and stuff that I pulled up in research.
Well, this is my question, Rob, because I couldn't find a lot of research on this, because it's one of those movies that most moviegoers are kind of apathetic towards.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find anything about because I know we've talked about numerous times when it comes to things like The Shadow King and other Henry Selick Disney ventures. Was there any context to this, in that did Disney really micromanage him? like once Tim Burton was out of the picture, or was this him just trying again? Like, what was his like direction when he was making this? Like, was there one? Like, did you uncover anything that I couldn't find?
I never found anything that led me to believe that the studio was really hands-on with it. I know that Disney was the one who was really pushing for let's adapt Roald Dahl books in some way, and, you know, trying to buy up rights and stuff like that from Roald Dahl's estate, because I think he dies in, the late 80s or something like that. But no, it seemed to me that Disney had a lot of say in what the script was, but then once they passed it off to Selick and the team of animators, they pretty much let them do what they wanted to. Because I was able to find a lot more information about the versions that the script went through rather than the actual making of the film. And one of the things that was like early scripts of this, Disney kept shutting down because apparently someone named Dennis Potter was hired to write a draft, and the entire Mecha-Shark scene, the Mecha-Shark was supposed to be clearly stated, like shown, you know, no character would say it, but it would be shown through iconography on it to be a Nazi shark. And Disney was like, nope, this is not going to fly at all. And eventually it gets to something more family friendly that they run with. But yeah, like I said, when they throw it over to Selick and the animators, it seems like they let him do pretty much whatever he wanted to as long as he stuck to that script.
That's interesting because, like, after this, Henry Selick almost, like, he has Monkey Bone 5 years later.
Yep.
Coraline 8 years later. Then Shadow King begins, 2 to 3 years later after that? And then, like, oh, God, since Coraline, he's more or less been, like, an underground artist. And that, like, he kind of just has not had, like, a home.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. That's something, you know, we get at a little bit in the Patreon episode talking about where he might go in the future. You know, 2022 Wendell and Wild is supposedly happening. You know, I'll cross my fingers that happens and is good, you know. But no, I think that's something we get into a little bit more in the Monkey Bone discussion, is that even though Henry Selick doesn't have a lot of, you know, control, or he's not being controlled too much from the studio, this movie does not do well, and they want to put him on the back burner after that, which is, you know, leads into the Monkey Bone creation. But I don't even think this made its budget. Yeah, this made like 37 against a $38 million budget when it came out in 96. And I think Disney was more like, oh, this didn't do as well as he wanted it to, so Henry Selick, you know, gets pulled back a little bit from maybe the more, you know, rise he could have had this done any better. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. But this is one of those things where I was kind of curious in, like, looking at the idea of like, because we all know Disney's, like, in the business of merchandising. That's where the true money is. And from what I can tell, there wasn't a lot of merchandise for this film.
Okay.
And that's what leads me to believe that, like, Disney, like, kind of, like, that's, like, this is just, like, the really infuriating thing about Hollywood nowadays. Well, not nowadays, but, like, God, 30 years, maybe anything post-Star Wars, is the idea that, like, before you even, God, the movie just has, like, the roughest of just, like you said, probably, Rob, like, the sketches, like, the idea of, like, a script. Mm-hmm. And they, like, they'll bring it to, like, the license partners and be like, okay, like, what do you want to do toy-wise for this?
Yeah.
And this is very reminiscent of, like, the same sort of environment that where the Shadow King got caught up in, of, like, John Carter, a.k.a. John Carter of Mars from 2012. And that, like, they'll show the ideas and the concept art to the license partners. And they'll be like, okay, what kind of, like, merchandise do you want to make from this? And if the licensees are like,
yeah,
Disney will write the film off. Like, that's the thing. Like, you'll be, like, 2 or 3 years away from, like, theatrical release. And if there's no license partners that want to merchandise the film, Disney's like, okay, this won't make any money. So we're just going to put the bare amount of effort into this possible. And from, like, my little, like, research, once again, going into just the, like, merchandise for this film, it was practically non-existent.
Okay.
Which leads me to believe that, like, once again, it goes to the idea that, like, a movie's not going to make a lot of money if you don't notify the public that it exists.
Sure.
And I think that's part of the reason. It's just weird, sort of just, like, everything. It's this house of cards that if you kind of, like, if you don't put the effort into it, people aren't going to be able to appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look into any merchandise or anything because I usually don't. But I don't think I had any action figures or toys from this. I'm trying to think of what even they would be. You know, you just have a kid playing with a big anthropomorphic bug or something like that.
but this is the thing, though. So, like, think about it, though. Like, regardless of whether you like this film or not, the merchandising opportunities are just bonkers for this film. You have every character that's, like, that James meets on the Peach. You have all the cast of characters, like, in the sunken, like, pirate ship.
Yep.
under the Antarctic or the Arctic, depending on what you want to believe.
All the Disney skeleton stuff, yeah.
Yeah, all the not Jack Skellingtons.
Yep.
Again, there's no shortage of merchandising opportunities when it comes to this.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. It's this is one. It's one of those things where always like like we talked about a little last week. It's a bummer that people think Tim Burton created or directed The Nightmare Before Christmas. Here, it's more of a bummer that this movie didn't do as well. Because when I talk to people who still know about it, they have like some sense of nostalgia for it. But it kind of stops there. Like I don't think there's a lot of people who have rewatched it, or at least that I talk to, things like that. But no, it's an interesting point you bring up with that for sure.
One thing I really thought was interesting in that when it comes to Nightmare Before Christmas and tying it to James and Giant Peach, I was watching a YouTube video, and as we all know, if IMDb is the bastion of knowledge, YouTube is the bizarre stupid.
Okay.
In this review retrospective on James and Giant Peach, they talked about Nightmare Before Christmas, and they described the Nightmare Before Christmas erroneously, but I think in a way that like culturally it's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to know what Rob's opinion is on this. They described The Nightmare Before Christmas as the Tim Burton's film that Henry Selick supervised.
Ooh, okay.
which is factually, I think we all can agree based on last week's episode, is factually incorrect. But culturally speaking, it might be correct.
Yeah, no,
it's
you bring
a
up
Tim
a good
Burton
point.
film that Henry Selick supervised.
That's kind of like what the mass public views it as, type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, it's just one of those things. So it's neither here nor there. But I found it fascinating. Is like what, a turn of speech?
Sure. Yeah, I don't love it, but I know what you're saying, Zach. That is probably how that's something that people would hear and go, oh yeah, I'm going to repeat that type of thing. It's a soundbite that too many people believe in. Oh man. So yeah, this movie did not do that well, that type of thing, like we were saying. The merchandising stuff is interesting, Zach. I'm thinking of getting like a little, just like you have like a peach that opens up and you can like have a bunch of little characters in there. Some type of micro machines or something like that. But anyway, it's on that same topic of this not doing so well. This is what I've been interested now to get your thoughts on, Ben. What like how did you kind of come around in this movie? Like you said you were younger, it didn't really latch on to you, that type of thing. Now seeing it again, for this recording, or seeing it at least in the light of Henry Selick and the director that we're talking about, what kind of think did it for you? Did you like it more because of the music, because of the story? What do you think?
Overall, I think I liked almost everything about it, actually. But I definitely I vibed with the story of this kid who's miserable. The magic intervention of that, like that was kind of fun. Just like you said earlier, the kind of chemistry between the characters, or one of you said earlier, the chemistry between the characters was really good. At no point was I like particularly bored during it. There were a lot of like the dad jokes and stuff that you kind of already mentioned. But I mean, overall, like the whole package is just it was palatable. It was easy to watch, and it was even a little more than that. I found myself actually kind of enjoying the characters. And then even like the little jokes, like, oh, a Skellington, it was Jack Skellington,
Yep.
as the pirate. It's like, oh, that's funny. And like the subtitle even says Skellington, not skeleton. So I thought that was kind of cute. And it's like, yeah, I mean, just like overall, it's a fun like adventure story, not too deep or anything, but in a 60 or however many minute movie,
yeah,
I don't think you need that.
No, you bring up a good point there, Ben, with the nothing too deep, and that's something, of course, as we talk about all these Henry Selick movies, there's always some like theme or messaging going on. I think, well, one, because this is based off of the Roald Dahl novel, and like we were saying before, it's trying to be a very, very, I guess, stern representation of the story. I think that that inherently makes this movie like, the theme is there, don't get me wrong, but it's the most like on the level. Like I definitely think that this is right from the beginning, almost all the way to the end. The whole theme of this is something like, try looking at it another way, like change your perspective to solve these problems. And then, of course, like using everybody that's in your team or using all their specializations, really just this idea of, change your perspective, and it's going to hopefully get you towards your goal. It's going to better yourself in some way. It's going to help you face your fears, that type of thing. Whether your fears are, like metaphysical or actual, like these terrible ants that are, ruining your life and stuff like that. But did you get something of that same thing, Ben, from that nothing too deep idea you were getting at?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's the whole, if your eye offends you, pluck it out kind of vibe going on in this movie with the change your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said for, like, there's like an aspect of like not giving up or not losing hope or like trying to grasp onto life when everything around you is like beating it out of you. But I don't know. I guess it's not something we haven't seen time and again.
Yeah, definitely.
But definitely, like, I mean, the look at it another way is kind of ham-fisted almost in this movie, where it's like the mother says it like specifically to him, and then the bugs remind him like, do what your parents said. Look at it another way, like.
Yeah, ham-fisted is a great way to put it, and like very, on the nose when they say it. And then really, I think, it might be some weird form of Stockholm Syndrome. I think it is really dumb watching it now when I'm like 28 years old. I think it is really dumb, but it's still fun in a charming way. It has always gotten me, like I said, now, even when I was younger, that whole scene where they're all starving and they're like looking at each other and their friends are turning into food, like that classic cartoon thing. And I'm just always like, you're on a peach, and that's what they do in the movie. James is like, we're on food. We can just eat the food, the peach we're flying on, that type of thing. And they're all like, that's so crazy, it just might work. And that always just seems so goofy to be like, no, why is anybody having, like, that's the one part of the movie where it's just like, oh, they're padding the runtime type of thing. But
especially bugs, like any bug. And like, it's not as if the peach wouldn't smell like food the whole time.
Yep.
As well. But yeah, so that was definitely one thing, and of course this peach is magical, so I guess that explains why it doesn't become rotten, since it is like open and exposed to air and such. But yeah, no, that little bit, like you said, it felt like runtime padding.
Yeah, that's the one point, because clearly I think it goes towards this theme we've been talking about of, try looking at another way, like. The perspective shift is, it's not just your transportation, it's also, your source of food. But that's the one time it comes across to me as maybe so obvious or so ham-fisted and forced in that I'm like, are they just saying, like, to change your perspective, look down instead of forward or something? Like, it comes across as so basic. Like, all the other stuff where they're like, oh, we have to capture the seagulls. It's like, we don't have sails, but we have seagulls. Well, we don't have string, but we have spider web. And that is more of like, oh, they're all coming together and realizing how to look at this. Like, it's that, I'm sure we've heard that example before, where it's like, if you look at an object, you're going to be more productive if you see it as its parts rather than its whole. Like, if you see a candle, don't look at it as just a candle. Look at it as, oh, this is a bunch of wax and a string in the middle. And I feel like that's when the movie is getting at all their teamwork and, building to forward their goal or forward the plot. That's when I'm like, oh, I get it. Change your perspective. But the peach one is just like so blatantly obvious. I'm just like, geez. I'm just like, get through this. We do get to see like the worm in a hot dog bun, which is pretty fun. But then I'm like, come on, just get to the song,
Well, in the introduction of the concept, like the first time that we see it, it literally is just like turn a little bit so that you see the cloud a different direction.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess there's two instances of like look at it in different ways, like literally look at it from a different direction, which sometimes is actually useful in problem solving. Especially spatial stuff, but no, those two are kind of goofy.
Oh yeah. But no, I mean, yeah, that's the thing where when I'm watching this, I'm like, yeah, it's here, Henry Selick, the message is there and stuff. But I think Zach, you said it best, that it's so tied to the source material that it doesn't get to breathe like some of our other stuff does and things like that. And then I also think that there's just some set pieces in this movie that are just there to be visually fantastic, Like the one I said we're going to talk about, the Mecha-Shark. Okay, so in the world of this movie, I'm assuming the one we see is not the only one. There's a device. There's a mechanical shark that just roams around in the water, in the ocean, for seemingly the only reason is to eat fish and spit out fish heads on plates, like ready to go. Okay, what do you guys think? Do you guys think this is some elemental force, or do you think this is a company that is, like, using this machine to, like, chop up fish heads, and then they go out and get the fish heads from the ocean? Like, if it's some type of company thing, the back end of the product seems so confusing on how do you even get a handle of that. So the other thing would be, is this just some type of like mechanical shark god that exists in the universe of this film? I don't know. I couldn't wrap my head around this thing.
I think it was a crazy lab scientist. It was just
so you think this was like, okay, some type of like, mad scientist created this to what? Just kill fish?
I mean, maybe the mad scientist from Nightmare Before Christmas created it.
This is one of his further inventions.
Yeah, and he was mad that it couldn't fly, so he threw it away, and now it just roams the ocean.
Well, I definitely didn't think of that. That this is just some type of like evil device or evil robot that's just on the loose, just chopping up fish somewhere. I mean, I don't know. It's the weirdest thing to me. It's wonderful to look at, and I love that whole thing. The shots we get of like the inside of and all the teeth and stuff. It's great, but I just can't get over like just the existence of this thing.
I figured it out. It was made by somebody whose parents were killed by fish. And it is his revenge on fish. It is just out there to kill fish and try to make them go extinct.
Okay, I like that idea, and that's believable, but why is the release mechanism for the dead fish heads on plates? Like, wouldn't it be better just to put, like, the chum back in the water or something? Like, I think
the fish heads on plates is, like, to show the other fish what's coming from them.
Oh, so it's kind of like this. Okay, interesting.
It's the mafia-style warning.
Sure. I guess one of the things I can't get over is like how many plates are in this device. Like, is it gonna run out of plates?
It's making new plates out of clams and oysters and shit.
So the other things it's eating it's just like this, perpetual motion machine.
Yeah, it's a plate making fish cutting.
Well, Ben, I have a wrench to throw into it. How are the plates buoyant?
They're made out of sea life stuff, so
just the buoyant part.
Sea life stuff.
But also, if you throw a wrench into it, it'll just grind it up with its teeth.
Cool. It's just the craziest thing to me. I can't get over it. I can never get over it. I mean, it's like I said, it's my jam. I think it's the coolest thing. But that's one of the things where I'm just like, oh, we just need tension in this moment, Because of course you can think of, well, earlier on the ants give James the fish heads, and he's like, this is gross type of thing, and ends up eating just like chip crumbs or something. So that's what made me think this was some type of like business thing or company production, means of production. But it just seems so unbelievably strange to me just to include that shot of it shooting out the plates of fish heads. I cannot get over it, man.
Well, I mean, the serious answer is it's just a callback to the stuff he had to deal with his aunt. So it's just a dangerous thing that he needs to that he needs to further his motivation to escape. But the correct answer is it's fish vengeance. Like, this is somebody out there that hates fish.
And they destroy this machine. I don't know. Do we think there are more Mecha-Sharks out there? Do you think there's like a whole fleet or anything like that?
Did they destroy it?
Yeah, doesn't when they shoot the harpoon, or it shoots the harpoon, they like are able to catch it, and it cuts all the teeth off and like explodes in the water. I think when they fly away, we see it explode.
Oh, okay, I'm not remembering that. It's gonna make one mad scientist very upset. Oh man,
sure.
The mad scientist is gonna be upset. That's great.
So speaking of the water as well, we get this whole, they go in the ocean, they're flying over the ocean for the, bulk of the movie. They encounter that Mecha-Shark, as we've called it. At the end of the movie, when they get to New York, and we have the Peaches landed on the Empire State Building, kind of everybody's there. Sponge and Spiker show up with the car from the beginning that's been crushed, but now the car is also like leaking water and there's seaweed in it. Is the implication that they drove through the ocean to get there?
So, if you remember during the ship scene, some of the figureheads on some of those boats look exactly like Spike and Sponge.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, I think the implication is that they turned into figureheads and their car turned into a boat, and that boat sank. And then somehow they still managed to get to New York.
Somehow. there's a lot of that stuff. I know we talked about it with Nightmare Before Christmas, that you're so steeped in this fantasy world, and where it's like, oh, this is Halloween Town, this is Christmas Town, and then that third act, you're just like out in the regular, you know, Christmas and Halloween, accepting like the world that we live in. Here, it starts so sensationalized once again, like this kid's life is terrible, he becomes an animated creature talking to bugs, and then it gets back to New York, and the New York stuff is played so realistically, where it's like he gets to leave his aunts because they're crazy, he lives in the pit of the peach, he makes all these friends, all of the giant bugs are just assimilated into New York, you know, very nicely. It plays it so realistic at the end, but I think all the things we're talking about, like what the hell, why are Sponge and Spiker there at the end? Why are they, you know, mastheads on that sunken ship? Why is this shark thing, you know, existing in the water? There's a lot of those fairy tale elements that make it seem to me like, is there something more that I'm missing? Like, yeah, we think the theme is so, like, on the nose, like, change your perspective, try looking at another way, that some of this stuff just seems like it could be so fantastical and so, like, in James's head type of thing, that it makes me think there might be a little bit more that I'm just not latching on to. But at the same time, I don't know if it's that, or if it's just, hey, here's some interesting things we thought of visually, because we know that's what Henry Selick loves to do, and they all get mashed together.
So, I mean, I kind of take a little bit of issue with the whole Spike Sponge scene where he's like, they beat me, and everyone's like, oh no.
Come along. You're going home with us.
No, I'm not.
What did you say?
I said, no, I'm not. I hate that house and that cold room, and Hal's always hungry.
All right, that's enough.
And how you beat me. He's lying. And tell me I was nothing.
Shut up!
Shut up. No, not this time.
Oh,
Like, this
sure.
was the 40s, right? Like, in the 40s, wasn't beating your children expected? Like, of course they beat you. You're a child. What do you mean you don't want to do the labor they're forcing you to do?
Sure.
Doesn't everybody have to? Like, isn't, like... But maybe with the exception of the people in New York City, but, like, at this point, weren't there still, like, farms where kids are, like, doing super amounts of labor?
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point, yep.
So I was kind of like... They were like, she makes me chop wood, and they were like, oh my god! And I was like, that's really fucking normal, I think, in the 40s for children to chop wood.
Okay. No, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, definitely. And for, you know, he's orphaned, living with these distant relatives, somewhat distant relatives. It's almost just kind of like, yep, that's your relegated lifestyle type of thing. But then also, I think that plays into the, like I was saying, the fairy tale aspect at the end, where it's like, they were mean to me, and it's like, oh no, you just now get to live on your own with your giant bug people in Central Park, you know?
Well, and he goes back to normal, but the bugs don't, and also the Peach Pit doesn't, so, like, that's weird.
Yeah, I think they show something like when James is coming out of the peach at the end, he like coughs up the magic crocodile tongue that he swallowed.
Oh, okay.
And I've always taken that to be the implication why he goes back to normal. That would have been a horrific scene. Because, you know, at the beginning, of course, James and the spider meet when James is the regular boy and the spider's just a little spider, you know, and he saves the spider. And then that comes into play later on. Could you imagine at the end if, like, all the bugs just kind of shrank and you'd have a scene where, like, a live-action boy is just staring at, like, you know, a grasshopper, a centipede, a spider, an earthworm, and he's like, my friends, you know?
Oh, I mean, definitely, that would be devastating.
Yeah. They're just regular bugs again, you know, and nobody would, like, believe him, and he'd, like, have to try and save his bugs from ever being killed and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be quite hard for kids to watch.
That's good. I like all the bugs, like we were talking about the characters for. I like all their interactions and stuff. I guess the weakest one would be the glowworm, just because she has the least to do. Except there's a few times when she doesn't know what's being said because she's deaf. You know, did he say marvelous pigs in satin? And, you know, that type of stuff. But they're all good fun, and I guess, you know, that's something else to talk about is the music in here. It's Randy Newman, and so I think Randy Newman music all kind of falls into a very similar kind of motif. Definitely different from last week, what we got with Danny Elfman. But I've always kind of liked the music in here. Like we mentioned how there's not as many songs, and so they're a little longer, and they have actual like big musical numbers that go around with them. But I guess the thing that we have to talk about, starting at the beginning, the first song James sings. So him singing by himself, "My name is James." One of the things for me that it's not like terrible, but it's not great. Like this, Paul Terry is the actor who plays James in this movie. It's a little tough to listen to. I don't know. What did you guys think about that first song from him?
His voice is not fantastic. It's not terrible. I mean, it's not like the worst thing I've ever heard, but it is not great.
Yeah, there's a few of the trying to hit the higher notes with like the breathiness. It's like you can tell he's not confident in being able to hit those high notes, but he's still trying to.
They'll say, James, 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 how are ya? Isn't it a lovely day? James, 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 we're so glad you came here where we are, from so very, very, very far.
I think it kind of works in the sense of that, we want to see how sad his life is with the ants. But I mean, we've been getting that hammered home to us so much before the song that did we even really need it with this song? But I don't know, Zach, did you have any thoughts on the I guess the music and just the child actor in general?
No, I don't blame the child actor because he's a child.
Sure.
That's up to the producers who they hired. I know the idea of having Randy Newman means you get a rather basic score. It's going to fall within the confines of what Randy Newman knows how to do best. No, the music is very uninspired. It's kind of the antithesis to what I said last week about Nightmare Before Christmas, in that like it's very boilerplate. It's more of just describing what's happening in the moment as opposed to advancing the story. Yeah. It's boilerplate, and that's probably being generous at the same time.
Definitely, like with the Peach song where they're talking about this was like 3 minutes of them being like, "We're in a peach, you can eat it." And it's like it's like okay, I mean it's like a fun song, but it's not advancing anything.
Exactly, yeah. And I pulled up lyrics, when I was watching this just to have them to like, read along with type of thing. And the lyrics for eating the peach are great. Because, I mean, there's some fun lyrics in that with food stuff I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to our restaurant. But then just a whole paragraph of peach, 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 peach. And I'm just imagining Randy Newman just sitting there and he's like, okay, yeah, just throw another 12 peaches there. That'll add another 15 seconds, that type of thing.
For one small bite, tiny bite of this fantastic dream.
Yeah, I mean, when you're sitting there typing out the word peach over and over again, like, do you stop and think, how did I get here?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how did this become my life? Because and like, how do you decide when to stop typing peach?
Exactly. Yeah. How do you know to put that many and not one more, one less, or anything like that? Or maybe he started with the whole song was just the word peach, and he started taking peaches out artfully and putting in other words. Who knows?
Okay. I don't know. Maybe this is a weird thing. I'm not sure. Every once in a while, I find myself like kind of saying a word a lot and then getting stuck and not thinking I'm ever going to be able to stop saying it. Like, have you ever experienced that? Like, I'm sure that he was like typing peach. He was like, "Oh fuck, what have I done?" I've entered the realm of like now I'm typing peach for the rest of my life.
I like that. There should be like a parody of Limitless, or instead of Bradley Cooper taking the drug and like just banging out his whole, I think he writes a book in a day or something like that. It like shows the time lapse of him at the computer or something. At the end, when he's like coming out of the high of the drug, he's like, "Man, let's see what work I did," and it's just like he typed peach for 90 pages or something like that.
Like, damn, that was really good. Let's pick it back up tomorrow.
Read that back to me. Peach, 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 peach.
No, hold on. You're saying that wrong. It's peach, 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 peach.
Oh god. Yeah, the Peach song is just, it's very repetitive. Zach, you said it well, boilerplate. I love That's the Life for Me. I think that's like a good, let's do it. Let's do something better for ourselves. Let's change our perspective, that type of thing. But like I was saying, I think there's only 5 songs, because after they eat the peach, then there's the family song, and then the I think Good News is the one at the outro. So there's not a lot of music in this. And like you were saying before, Zach, it's like it's all boilerplate. It's just describing what they're doing, and that is also kind of like what we were saying you get with Randy Newman, that type of thing. So yeah, and also the last kind of musical we're going to get from Henry Selick in this sense, because we don't really have music in Monkey Bone, and Coraline just has like instrumental performances. I guess there's that one Father song, but yeah, it's I kind of remember this having a lot more music than it actually does, and it's there, it's fine, but I'm not singing any of this, on on an intro or an outro. You know what I mean?
I want you to never do that again.
Yeah.
Rob, want you to do that every single episode,
even if it's not a musical. Just find a song to sing.
Exactly. I want you to orchestrate your own musical ad material.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah.
Adding a whole new layer to Cinemodities.
Yeah, because I don't have enough work to do.
There you go. Well, I have a question, because obviously you two are more music people than I am. Is Randy Newman, is Toy Story the film that really, allowed his career to take off as a composer of movies? Because, I looked through his IMDb, and he's pretty much, he's the Pixar man, and then occasionally he'll do something like live action that almost, doesn't fit. He'll do Seabiscuit, then he'll do a Marriage Story with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, and it's just but everything else is Cars, Cars 2, Cars 3, Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, Monsters Inc., Toy Story 4. Is he just solely a company man when it comes to composing soundtracks?
I've always thought so.
Films.
I mean, he has his he was a solo artist before he started doing that, but I think he's one of those people kind of in the same vein of Danny Elfman, who goes from, a band or a recording, artist type of thing, and some way finds his, place in the film score. I'm sure that Randy Newman did stuff before Toy Story, but I think that's the one that just hits so well. It just hits so well that they just take him into that fold, and they just want him to do that kind of same thing over and over and over. Because you're right, it is so much of the Pixar stuff.
Well, that's the thing. You look at his composing credits, and everything is pretty much just Pixar after that, except for the occasional oddity. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, and that's, I think, I see him pop up with a new album every now and then, but maybe the last one was 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, I think he's just found his way into just, scoring films, and people know him. They're going to know the name Randy Newman. They're going to, know his music. You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story is so famous. I mean, they even adapted that into Kingdom Hearts 3 when you go to Toy Story World. You hear that Randy Newman-esque music in that the soundtrack for that world.
But can anybody I'm less you, Robin, maybe more the audience at home? Can anybody actually name Randy Newman piece of composed music from a film that's not You Got a Friend in Me? Everything else is, I think about it, whether it be A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc., any of the Toy Story sequels. Is there anything else besides You've Got a Friend in Me?
Nothing
and maybe
comes
the
to my mind.
the composition of Infinity of Beyond, where you have that little bit which is something the Toy Story franchise is kind of abandoned. That's what I mean. He's kind of a one note one note composer. Yet he kind of lives off that credibility of just You Got a Friend in Me.
So the more you say You've Got a Friend in Me, the more it feels like a song about swingers, in a relationship.
That's the when he came up with the song, that's really what it was about, Ben, and then Toy Story co-opted it.
Goddamn Disney cleaning things up.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing comes to mind, Zach. I think it really is that Toy Story thing. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, this is his type of
song
stuff.
He wrote where he hates midgets. Isn't there a song like Andy Newman infamously wrote where he's midgets are bad people? Isn't it, right? Isn't that I want Rob to insert that. That's a real song where he's that's a real thing that I've seen on the internet a couple times but nobody talks about.
The song "Short People" by Randy Newman popped up on Google. I don't know if I've ever heard this in its entirety.
Really?
Yeah.
That's just why I don't even think of Randy Newman as a Toy Story person anymore. I think of him the person that hates small people. He wrote a song how he hates short people.
Yeah.
Read the lyrics, Rob. Please read the lyrics out loud.
Okay, well,
Rob, read the lyrics out loud.
Jesus, let me open the tab, Zach.
Last week. You got to do it again. No, Rob. You got to do it. Sounds like a bad. Now I just sound like a bigot.
Zach's like, know the lyrics.
It's from the album Little Criminals.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. Ben came to the rescue, not Rob.
Okay, apparently there's a verse that says, they got little baby legs, they stand so low, you gotta pick them up just to say hello. They've got little cars that go beep, beep, beep. They got little voices going peep, peep, peep.
Oh my God. All right. Short people got no reason to live is they got little hands and little eyes, and they walk around telling great big lies. They got little noses and tiny little teeth. They wear platform shoes on their nasty little feet. I don't want no short people around here. Short people are just the same as you and I, a fool such as I. All men are brothers until the day they die. Okay, so he goes from saying that short people are awful to saying that they're just the same as us. So we're also awful. Short people got nobody to love.
Short people got no reason to live. They got little hands, little eyes. They walk around telling great big lies. They got little noses, tiny little teeth. They wear platform shoes on their nasty little feet. Well, I don't want no short people.
Then the baby legs.
Baby legs.
So, I mean, at one point in the song, he says that short people are just like us. But the rest of it seems to be awfully specific about hating short people. So I don't know. That's a very strange... the first three lines are short people got no reason. The fourth line is to live. Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason to live.
Rob, thoughts?
It's my new ringtone. Just made it my ringtone. No, I will definitely put the clip in. I don't know how this song goes or anything like that, but
It sounds like every other Randy Newman song, Rob. Like, come on. Like, it sounds like every other one.
Short people. Short people.
I can still remember, like, when Sal introduced me to that song. And I'm like, Sal, like, shut up. This is your normal, like, nonsense. He's like, no, it exists. And, like, I found out about it, like, 10 years ago. And I'm like, man, like, how has Disney kept him employed this entire time? I guess the short people special interest group really has no effect on the shareholders of the Walt Disney Company.
Well, do you think he got back in everybody's good graces by then going on to, be so involved in Toy Story? Because technically those toys are short people, right?
Are they? Are they technically? They have baby legs, Rob. Do they have baby legs?
I think so. Yeah, compared to they got baby legs compared to actual babies.
Like Deadpool baby legs?
Yes.
Rob,
Probably
Ben, don't give Ryan Reynolds
babier.
ideas.
Oh God. Okay. That was a strange tangent I did not expect, Zach, but I'm glad you brought it up.
I'm so glad. Hey, it was the other show up here or in the Toy Story episode we inevitably do.
Sure.
It's one or the other. You at least you prolong the Toy Story episode at least a couple more years.
Okay, good, man. I don't know if I want to watch that anytime soon. Another moment that I wanted to bring up, because it was something, if I wanted to know if you picked up on, Ben, we do get a dream sequence in the middle of this movie. And it's when, I think it's after they go to bed after the whole Peach song, and they wake up, and that's when they're in the, either very north or very far south. And the dream sequence is, James as a caterpillar eating a peach, and the ants roll up, and they, use like one of those bug duster things, like the smoke makers to throw them away, but it turns into Rhino, that whole thing. Totally reminiscent. That whole 2D, stop motion animation sequence really, really made me think of Slow Bob in the Lower Dimensions, which is Henry Selick's earlier short film. Remember the scissor people attacking the photograph people, Ben? I got a lot of that same style here.
I was definitely getting those vibes as well. And I mean, Slow Bob in the Lower Dimensions, like he goes from 3D to 2D.
Yes.
This is James in the Lower Dimensions.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So you definitely get the Henry Selick influence there.
Yeah, and I liked this is another thing, this whole kind of sequence. I like the effect of the smoke in this thing, and I also think, that it's like the ants are the one blowing the smoke to make him run and stuff like that. It's one of those, another sequence where I'm like, is there something else going on here? But then the movie kind of forgets about it, because right off the bat, James wakes up to, Grasshopper and Centipede arguing about how they've misguided the Peach, and they're in the frozen, ship graveyard or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, when I saw that dream sequence, I was like, man, this is it. He's doing the slow bob thing. And I think it works well. I mean, if you have this weird, 3D stop motion animation style, you go to a dream sequence, use this 2D, more like South Park-esque animation style with like the paper cutouts and stuff. I think it looks really cool. It gives it another like visual twist on what we've been seeing that keeps it interesting.
I thought more with like Monty Python's Flying Circus. Like I got Terry Gilliam vibes from that.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And I think in our Patreon episode I describe Henry Selick as some mid-level stepping stone between like the animation of Monty Python and Adventure Time and things like that, because there's a lot of comparisons. But no, you're absolutely right with that too, and I think it looks awesome, and it's just another thing to keep it interesting until we go underwater and we're in all these like Disney skeleton people, like Jack Skellington. One looks like Donald Duck, one looks like Iago, one looks like Pete, that type of stuff. Did any of you guys have any issue with just our characters can exist underwater the same way that they exist above water? Like there's no breath holding, there's talking. Did you guys have any issue with that?
I mean, I accepted it as like a fantastical part of this movie.
Okay.
But I was definitely thrown a little bit whenever it first happened. I was like, at some point I was like, oh wait, are they underwater? Because there's really no indication of that. Like I don't even think there's like hair waving, wafting in the water type of stuff. It's all just like them exist, like you said, like they exist underwater exactly the same as they would above it.
That's a good way to put it. You hit the nail on the head. I think you're like thrown by it. Where I quickly I just accepted it. I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing because we got to have fun action scene, But at the start, I'm just like, is when the Mr. Centipede is just like walking in the ship and talking, and he's like, "Oh, a skeleton and stuff," and I'm like, is he going to drown or anything? It definitely caught me off guard. I thought we were going to have some like holding your breath sequence type of thing.
Well, and there was definitely a point where I was like, oh, did he like climb up on a ship and I missed it?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, they're just underwater and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and they get their compass. Everybody's okay, that type of thing. Centipede gets his hero moment, that type of stuff. No, I think it's fun. This was definitely when I was younger. I always remember thinking of this as like the Jack Skellington scene, and so it'd be like, I knew about Nightmare Before Christmas first, then this movie. I'm sure that was the order, and then watching this, it's always like, oh yeah, it's the Nightmare Before Christmas part type of thing. And for some reason, I enjoyed that when I was a kid, just that little crossover.
I mean, you know how I feel about shared universes. I definitely took that to mean that Jack Skellington at some point in his life was a pirate.
Sure.
In like the 40s, or sometime that precedes the 40s. And then after having woken up because of the Centipede, he decided to find a new place to live and went to Halloween Town.
Sure.
Or Halloween Land, whatever the hell it's called. And then he kind of took over, and he was the new guy in town. He took over from Oogie Boogie, and that's why there's the hatred there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm giving Oogie Boogie and Jack more backstory than they actually have.
It's a bummer we don't have more movies with Jack Skellington. We could just cover them and see how they all tie together like we did with Dean Norris back in the day, Zach.
That's the thing. Is like I kind of found yes, the idea of the characters going underwater is just peculiar, but I kind of found it like that's one of the element of this film I found really rejoicing. I rejoiced is that like there were no rules. I like how it's just like just out and out fantasy. And that's one thing that I feel like a lot of movies have kind of become like beholden to. And maybe it's this weird sort of just like a cinema sins reality we live in now. People want structure and aren't just willing to kind of just like whether it be like the idea that like his parents were eaten by rhinos, the rhino cloud, the idea that like the evil ants somehow like whether they drove or whatever across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yep.
I love the idea of just like there being no rules. It's just
where
fantasy.
the fuck did they get more gas? I don't think there's gas.
But that's
I'm just saying.
No. But no, it's just that I kind of appreciate that aspect of this film. Like, there's some points I want to get to definitely, like, toward the end of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea there kind of just being no rules and just, like, the idea of just, like, we're telling a story, you're either with us or you're not.
Yeah.
I found so refreshing. I think it's this film's, like, best trait.
Right
that
on.
is kind of interesting. And specifically because without rules, there are no stakes and there are no limits. And to some degree, without rules or limitations, there's no story. So it's interesting that this movie, like, it's obvious that there are some rules for the characters to live by, at least beforehand. Like, obviously, if you interact with a wild rhino, you die. Like, that's one of the rules of this universe. But it obviously is like something that's so ridiculous in the real world. So that's an interesting, I don't know, I guess, juxtaposition.
Yeah, and I didn't really think about it that way, but you're absolutely right. That's probably, you know, what charms me about this movie the most is that, you know, you're thrown into this world, and as it happens, it works on me, and I'm totally along for the ride. Like, I'm just thinking even at the beginning, he had a great life with his parents, and then a rhino cloud ate them, and now he is, you know, basically just a slave for his 2 aunts. But then even, you know, the peach starts growing, and everybody's like, well, okay, that's it. The peach is growing. We can use this to make money. There's never really that moment of, like, questioning what's going on. It's just like, huh, yeah, that happened. You know, that's the world we live in now. And you're right, Zack, not having those rules just lets it kind of glide for me, I think, the story at least.
Yeah, I appreciate it on, like, a subjective level when it comes to my, like, personal taste. But I agree with Ben in one respect that, like, yeah, like, if you have no structure, then where are the stakes to it all? But I think the problem is that, like, when it comes to so many, like, contemporary films, it's that notion of, like, oh God, I think I remember Rob saying this from, like, 10 plus years ago with the, like, Hack Snyder, like, Owl movie, where, like, Rob, like we saw the trailer for that, and Rob's like, man, that is too intense of a movie for me, and I am practically an adult. I think the idea is that, like, it's the idea of just having fun. Like, you're going on an adventure.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about it a lot. I think it was our Tron Legacy episode, like, a year plus ago, where I'm like, oh, this movie just feels like you're on an adventure. And not that there's no rules, it's that just, like, it's the idea of just, like, that swashbuckling fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel sometimes we get so caught up in the minutia of, like, whether we're telling a good story or not, almost like on a rubric level, we lose track of, like, our goal first and foremost should be entertainment. And I think this is something that Ben said even earlier, is the idea, like, this film just kind of, like, breezes by, and that, like, it's a romp. It's a romp. And so many kids' movies these days are so caught up in just, like, explaining the rules of the universe, and, like, whether, oh, wow, can we do this in the amount of time that we're allowed, or, oh, quick, we got to get out of here before X or Y happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that we just, like, oh, it's like, it's children's entertainment. It's meant to be a romp. It's not supposed to be grounded in reality. Unless that's what your intent is. Otherwise, it just comes down to, like, and I think that's kind of there's so many, it's a problem is that, like, this isn't objective. Again, it's a fun story. I'm having a hard time phrasing this just because this film is so unique, not just in a Disney sense, but in a children's entertainment like venue as well.
Yeah, it's kind of it's something else, you know. I was when we get to our questions, of course, that's what I was reflecting on, that it is such a strange thing to exist. Yeah, I'm totally with you. The romp aspect is, I think, you know, like we were saying at the start, these movies that are pretty brisk, this and Nightmare Before Christmas, it's kind of refreshing, you know. It's not difficult to watch in the slightest. Even like the evil stuff, the evil ants at the beginning, you know, they're played up to be, like, terrible, and, you know, terrible characters, terrible people towards James. But then even they're, you know, fun. They're so over the top. Like, I'm thinking of that moment when they're, like, letting people in to see the peach, and, like, someone shows up with a camera, like, I would assume from the press, and Sponge and Spiker get all excited about it, and they have him take a bunch of pictures, and then after they're done taking pictures, they take his camera away and say no cameras allowed. Like, they're just over the top, you know, like, evil and terrible people. And even that stuff comes across as fun for the audience.
Like, that's
Toes line from Sponge.
Oh, yeah.
That was some shit.
I look and smell. I do declare, as lovely as a rose. Just feast your eyes upon my face.
Observe my shapely nose. Behold my heavenly silky locks. And if I take off both my socks, you'll see my dainty toes.
But don't forget, my dearest Sponge, how much your tummy shows.
But I think there's a reason why too. That like, think about it. Like Sponge and Spike are such specific characters. Like in cultural sense, like the evil, like, oh god, goes all the way back to Cinderella. The idea of like the evil stepmother, quote unquote, and yet there's something so refreshing about them. And I think it goes to like the idea of like the brisk pacing, and that like you'll watch the Harry Potter movies, which are like the ultimate personification of having the evil step parents.
Yeah.
And after a while, where the parents' name in that was it? Aunt Petunia, Virgil, whatever. Everybody knows the image I'm conjuring up right now.
Sure.
But like, God, like the third movie, they are so just like there's nothing to them. Like they're two-dimensional characters. They're just there to kind of like they're like the runway of the movie. They're just there to get you off the ground. They're not there for any sort of narrative reason.
Mm-hmm. And
then by the time you get to them and like, was it Rob? Again, you're the one of the most Harry Potter osmosis-related Harry Potter history in this podcast. Is like what was it, the 6th or 7th movie where like they kind of have to like leave town because of the stake? Harry Potter is in such danger. Then they become interesting because they're finally forced to go on the run. But like after a while, the idea of the evil step parents is such like a oh god, it's a trope. And you know, Rob, how much I hate that word trope. But like it's been run dry at that point. But for some reason, Spike and Sponge are just so unique in that sense. They're almost refreshing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's something, you know, when you're right about the Harry Potter with the bad step parents. You know, I'm trying to think back if there was ever a case of this because it's been so long since I've seen those movies. But I love the fact that, you know, Sponge and Spiker are teamed up aggressively mean to James. Like as a team, they both like work in tandem to berate him and belittle him. But then it seems like when he's not around, they're just as evil, not just as, but they're also making fun of each other type of thing. I don't know. I don't really remember that in Harry Potter or anything else where you have like the evil step parents. They're not just the united front against the stepchild. They're also like, you know, throwing digs at each other and that type of thing. And that keeps, I think what you're saying, Zach, keeps it fun, keeps it interesting. They always have some little flourish to their characters that we get to see.
Oh, definitely. I agree. No, I 100% agree.
Right on. I think it's, like we said, it's not that long of a movie, and we've covered a lot of it. Were there any other moments you guys wanted to bring up? Anything we haven't I mean, I think we've talked about, like, every major event in the movie, because there's only, like, 4 or 5 of them.
Can we talk about Richard Dreyfuss as the voice of Mr. Centipede?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And how he's more or less, like, the main character of Insects.
Yeah.
Because he's Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes. Yeah, he's the one who gets, like, the arc of the going over the top, saying he can navigate, having his hero moment, like we talked about. Yeah, and another thing, you know, just like we talked about last week, Richard Dreyfuss is the speaking voice of Mr. Centipede, and then Jeff Bennett does all the singing for it. Everybody else does their singing parts, like Susan Sarandon as Miss Spider, David Thewlis as the Earthworm, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like they got a big name for Mr. Centipede, and so there you go. I love that when he's getting made fun of, or not made fun of, but, you know, everybody's turning on Mr. Centipede because they're angry that he led them into the wrong place. There's that bit where Mr. Grasshopper says, "You're a disgrace to your phylum, class, genus, order, and species." Another great joke, I thought.
I kind of dug that, like, the grasshopper straight kicks him in the face.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they get aggressive.
I mean, they're just like, they're leaning on the fact that Grasshopper's going to have strong legs because he's a jumpy guy.
Yep. Yeah, were there any other moment, any other things we wanted to highlight? Or any other big ideas?
One of the things, the Rhino Cloud, when James is like, climb onto the strings, like, I don't know why. I don't understand why in that situation he wouldn't have been like, get in the peach.
Oh, I know. Yeah, sure. Where it's really just kind of setting them up so they can hover down later, you know?
Yeah, so they can be separated.
Yeah, it would make total sense if it was like, it would make more sense if it's like, you know, get in shelter, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah, like it's a storm, get in the shelter, don't climb closer to the cloud rhino. Speaking of which, the ants at least talk about it as if it was a real rhino that killed his parents, not a cloud rhino.
Yes, definitely. And that's another thing where it makes me think maybe there's something a little more going on here, where the rhino cloud is like some manifestation of just this evil that his aunts, this grand evil is his aunts have been explaining to him or something like that.
Yeah, definitely some kind of manifestation of evil. Maybe even the manifestation just of fear in general.
Sure. Yep.
I think this is the thing. Like, I know in a lot of the like both YouTube and podcast reviews I watched and listened to respectively of this film, everybody gets like hung up on the idea of like, oh, the rhinos killed his parents, and the rhinos are the like thing that he has to triumph over. Mm-hmm. And it's like, is it goofy? Yeah, but it ties in perfectly to the film at large, in that like it's this weird sort of just like fantastical thing that kills his parents. It's very similar to like almost like Batman-esque, in that like it's this thing that kills his parents that he has to learn to triumph over. And it's no different than like Bruce Wayne learning how to triumph over crime in the same way in that like, was it Joe Chill who kills his parents, which is the ultimate embodiment of just like crime run amok. Mm-hmm. To me, it's no different. Is it fantastical? Yes. But it's no more kind of beyond the pale than just having a giant peach sailing over the Atlantic Ocean with a bunch of insects as James's like camaraderie.
Yeah.
Well, so the thing I find about this strange is that he's not really overcoming the thing that killed his parents. He's overcoming this visualization of his idea of the thing that killed his parents that had just happened to coincide with the adventure that he ends up going on where he could encounter such a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, he like, whenever we see the rhino killing, like, not killing his parents, we don't see that. Whenever they tell us the rhino killed his parents, like, we see the storm cloud. Mm-hmm. But then later, like, his aunts are talking about, like, it's a real rhino. But then he goes on an adventure where he's flying so he can interact with the cloud.
Okay.
So, like, it's pretty contrived in that way. In that, like, they put some, like, significant effort into building a thing that he could then later encounter on his journey.
Sure.
But it's not so much the thing that killed his parents as it is the fear of, I guess, the fear of something that could take his family away from him. Mm-hmm. That he's really trying to overcome. But he doesn't really overcome that either. He just happens to land near his family later. Like,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
So I don't know. I didn't think that was like particularly well done.
Sure. Do you think it would have been better if his parents were killed by the Mecha-Shark thing, and then that was the final showdown of the movie?
Well, that could have been the boss battle, but it would have made more sense if his parents were killed by a tornado. Or
Sure. Something more,
something actually weather.
I have to ask, Ben, what's the problem with his parents being killed with a tornado? What is that tied to, culturally speaking, too much? There's a very specific answer to this. A very specific answer. They could not that they couldn't do it, but they wouldn't do it for cultural storytelling reasons. When you think of cinema and tornadoes, what's the first thing that should come to mind? And Rob, you may answer
Wizard of Oz?
Exactly. When you think of cinematic tornadoes outside of like Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt,
sure.
Wizard of Oz is usually the very next thing that comes. You can't have anybody.
Twisters but it wouldn't have to be a tornado. But like,
I get what you mean.
If it's going to be clouds he's afraid of, or whatever, like, why not have a weather event? Or like, I don't know. Like, he's not confronting the thing that killed his parents. He just visualizes the thing he's confronting as the thing that killed his parents.
Sure. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. And Zach, that's an interesting point too with the Wizard of Oz, just because of how this movie has the switch from live action to animated. You know, kind of similar. I'm thinking the black and white to color after the tornado in Wizard of Oz. So you're right. Maybe if they threw a tornado in here, people have been like, this is just an updated Wizard of Oz type of thing. But no, I think, Ben, even what you're saying, make it some type of like weather related event. I even would think, take it out from, make it not a rhino and just make it like, I don't know, like a dragon or a bird or something that would fly naturally. I think that's the thing that comes off strangest to me, is that it's a rhino in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, a dragon would have been great if they were just like, and suddenly there was a dragon and it ate his parents. Yeah. And then there were no more dragons until he was in a peach. Like, that would be just as on par with everything else in this movie that I would probably be okay with it.
Sure.
Or maybe if he thought a dragon killed his parents, even though they were really hit by a bus or something.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We have no real knowledge of how they actually died, That'd be something, though.
Make it a bus. Just a bus in the sky.
But I don't know. I think Rhino is just. I think about it though. Like everything about this film is just kooky enough and dialed up. And remember, also this is also in the mid '90s. We had this weird sort of thing in like when it came to like cinematic culture where everything had to be just kind of a little kooky and a little crazy. So I don't know about is the Rhino in the Roald Dahl novel?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay, then there you go. There's
I think that.
Well, of course. But
if that's in the novel, then there's your explanation.
It's more of a criticism of the story than of the movie.
Well, it is because I think you're right, Ben. Initially, in that like it is a criticism of the film because they felt so beholden to the novel,
sure.
and that they felt they couldn't. Like, remember, like, there's a reason why we call this an adaptation, and I can imagine Rob probably has at least some level of a speech lined up when it comes to like adaptation. That you have to take, like with any sort of adaptation, some liberty has to be taken when translating from page to screen.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
No, that's a fair point, but. As I've talked about it, I've kind of the contrived nature of it maybe is less the problem than if for instance he was also afraid of storms, then perhaps he's projecting the thing that killed his parents onto the thing he's afraid of, and that's like actually a real psychological phenomenon. So if they had just established that he was afraid of storms, I would have been 100% on board with the storm being a rhino.
Gotcha. Or any other moments or anything that we wanted to talk about? I mean, or I guess. Question. I almost forgot about one. Did you guys notice that there's a post-credits scene?
I did not.
There's a post-credits scene.
Yes, and it establishes that Thor is going to be entering the Roald Dahl cinematic universe. I don't think I've actually ever seen it before. This was just like when I was finishing up my notes, I just let it run, and at the end of the credits, there's like a puppet-based arcade game, and where you control the rhino and you use it to like hit or bash Spiker and Sponge. Like think like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but where like you're using the rhino to try and ram into Spiker and Sponge, and that's it. It's just like a little tiny arcade game, like analog arcade game creation right at the end of the credits, which I had to bring up because, like I said, I don't think I've ever noticed that before in my whole life.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. Okay, what happened was that maybe I was just too impatient in that, and this is something I did want to bring up, in that, like, once the credits began, there was a button that appeared on Disney Plus, and Rob knows, like, it shows up a lot in the intro to skip, and I think it also shows up a lot when we were watching The Mandalorian.
Yep.
As soon as the credits began, there was a button that said skip credits. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how is that a thing? Like, that sounds like almost like a contractual like break in that like showing like credits of things. And I'm like, wait, would James and the Giant Peach have a post-credit scene? I'm like, was Henry Selick way ahead of the curve? And then I'm like, I just don't care, and I kind of just like went to something else.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd be shocked. Right now, I'm going to go and look it up on Disney Plus just so I can see for my own benefit.
Sure.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So, well, I guess I'm just still at a loss. Like, this file that you had let you control this thing?
Well, mine file was just I just let it play. Like as I watched the credits, like I would usually have turned the movie off or I would have exited the file.
No, I mean the rhino. Like
no. I have no control over it. You're just watching somebody do this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have. It's no like interactive thing on a DVD. I get what you're saying now, but on a DVD, maybe in like if this ever got a reissue, they'd put something like that where you'd hit the button to do it. But no, this is all just you're watching somebody play this game.
Oh, I thought you said it was an interactive game that you were playing.
Gotcha.
I was like, how the fuck did they rip that into a file?
That would be great.
I was so confused. All right, that makes sense.
It's just I think it's like it can't be more than like 15 seconds or something. But yeah, it's just you viewing like the cabinet of somebody playing this game. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I would love to see it somewhere. Maybe Henry Selick has it. But yeah, I would imagine, Zach, that's what you can skip to on Disney Plus. But I wouldn't know for sure.
I'm going to it right now because the credits of this film are like for. Oh no! Don't even go rush. Oh, okay. Let me see.
Zach's
okay, let me
just
see
watching the credits again.
It actually has a skip credits button. That's insane that Disney is doing that. That seems like horribly egregious to people who work on movies.
Well, who cares about the people who made the movies? Clearly not us.
I mean,
all right.
If you care about the people who made the movies, you're probably not going to use that button. And then if you're a normal person, you are. So that's great. Because you're not going to watch the credits anyway.
We're getting some live footage from Zach's room.
I can't. It's not letting me. Can you see me or can you see him?
We see you, Zach.
It won't let me switch the camera.
Well, turn your phone on.
I don't know how to do this. I feel so. I lost. I feel so naked. Yeah.
Just turn your phone towards the TV.
I don't like. That's too analog, Ben. You should know better.
Oh my god.
Zach's like, what are we, Amish?
All right, I will just do that. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. We're doing this in real time, folks. We're doing this in real time so Ben can see.
This is thrilling. Yeah, there you go. Spike the Ants is what it's called.
You got to put a quarter in, Ben. That's why Rob couldn't do it. He didn't put his money in.
I don't have a quarter.
What is going on right now?
God.
Oh my god, the little puppets are busty.
Yeah, see, you got to bash those ants. And you get to be the rhino. Their heads pop up like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. So somebody had to like put this all together just for this post-credit scene, you know?
Game over.
Wow.
You can watch The Nightmare Before Christmas next, Zach?
Oh, God. Well, okay, I'm glad. Okay, I want to just segue to this real quick. And that, like, Rob, because I think I mentioned it earlier, and while you two were talking, I was going on eBay looking to see if there's any James and the Giant Peach merchandise.
Sure.
I found a couple of things. One was apparently, and I remember this very vividly from, like, the mid to late 90s in the Disney store. Do you guys remember a Disney store? She had that giant setup in the middle of the building that was just filled with stuffed animals. Like, it was this weird sort of almost like not carousel, but like this weird sort of just like layered display of just different stuffed animals.
Like a tower of plushies, yeah.
Yeah, and they had some of those. Well, apparently, I don't know how widespread it was, but I did find a listing on eBay that they did make James and the Giant plush. Not stuffed animals, but almost like beanbag-esque.
Okay.
Like stuffed animals. What I did find, apparently the listing is for like prototypes. So I don't know if they actually made it to like full scale, just like retail, like level, just like, okay, every store is getting a finite amount of these.
Sure.
But I did find like a level of just like a like prototype. But apparently they did make some PVC figures in Japan of James and Giant Peach like characters. But the one thing I did find, it's not even James and Giant Peach merchandise. It's in connection with this film. It's under the label of Nightmare Before Christmas. And this ties back to my Pumpkin King action figure I have.
Okay.
They made pirate Jack Skellington figures.
Okay.
Which is clearly in reference to this film.
Yes, yeah.
So this is my question, maybe more to Rob than Ben. How do you feel that this film's lasting legacy is going to be Captain Jack Skellington? That's what this film we remember for. Not from anything from this film itself, but the fact that, like, it has a weird, obtuse reference to Jack Skellington.
Oh
How
my
does that
God.
make you feel if a connoisseur of this movie?
This movie won't be remembered.
You know what?
It's not going to be remembered for anything because it won't be remembered. But now Rob,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Ben. But it is on Disney Plus, which Disney could very easily have just like disregarded this film. But it is on Disney Plus. We have to give them the most. Oh God, it might be a microtesinally small amount of credit for, but it is on the streaming service. Which there's a lot of Disney stuff, as Rob and I talked years ago about, isn't available on Disney Plus right now.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm seeing the Pirate Jack figure that you're talking about, and it is labeled as Tim Burton's The Night Before Christmas exclusive Pirate Jack, and it comes with the dead parrot or the skeleton parrot, and it comes with the compass. Yeah, this is like exactly what we see in James the Giant Peach, just under the label of Nightmare Before Christmas. And that's a little, I don't know, that's like a little saddening to me, because I wish Henry Selick's movies stood out more on their own. You know, not being tied to Tim Burton, or being tied to Tim Burton is what I don't like. But still, I'm not that upset about it, Zach, that this lasting legacy of this movie is that, you know, we get to see another appearance of Jack Skellington. It's not the worst thing to me. At least it's out there, you know, at least for the people who know that it's a Henry Selick movie. They know they're in the right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm with you as well, though, Ben, that I don't think this movie is going to be remembered in any grand way, you know, at least compared to the other ones.
This is what's the thing though, Rob, and obviously Ben as well, in that like this is a quote unquote 90s kids movie.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
Oh, that is 100% what this is, yeah.
And beyond that nostalgia, I agree with Ben that like once 90s kids like forget about this movie,
sure,
this film will fail to exist anymore.
Yeah. And I this isn't even one of those things you ever hear about, like, you know, reboots or remakes or anything like that.
Well, okay, I'm glad you. Okay, real quick.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to know if you saw anything about.
Isn't there something with like Taika Waititi? He's doing a remake of this.
I think what I read about Taika Waititi is that at some like events that he's done, like I think it was like a charity event or something I was reading about, he like performed readings of this book. And I think that, you know, when people saw that, they thought he might be like, oh, is Taika Waititi looking to do a remake? But I think he just ended up doing that because he likes this book or he had some reason to be involved with it for a charity event. I haven't seen anything past like him wanting to actually remake it.
But this is the thing though, is like, remember Disney, like, oh God, Rob, you and I have talked about it so much, and I love, and maybe this is the wrong like episode to discuss this on, but considering we've never gotten like Ben's take on it, I'm kind of curious to ask him right now. Like, Disney has clearly reaped the benefits of all of its major contemporary classics, like The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. The only one that's kind of left they haven't pillaged is The Little Mermaid, and I know that's coming out with the woman's name who sounds like Halle. It's like what? Instead of Halle Berry, it's like it's Halle Berry or something. It's the strangest thing ever to name a person that. But like, this is the sort of movie that like we've talked about with like Atlantis: The Lost Empire earlier in the Fort Year, and that like this is a film that like even though it's very culturally and aesthetically unique, it never hit its mark on a mainstream level. So if you ever wanted to remake a film, and I don't know, Rob, do you know, does Disney still have the film adaptation rights to this?
Ooh, I would not know, yeah.
It's like, if you did want to remake a movie, why not try this again? And this is maybe, and this is where I'd love to know, Ben, like, Ben, would you want to see a Walt Disney Company in the year of 2021 remake this? Yes or no?
No.
I like the hesitancy in his voice there. That was a very nice touch, Ben.
I don't know. What are they going to give me? A live action remake of a movie whose sole selling point was that it switches from live action to claymation at some point? Like, that's what they're doing, right? They're just remaking everything in live action. Which
is what this film kind of is. This is kind of like the best of both worlds when it comes to this like sort of filmmaking.
Like, they're gonna replace the claymation with fucking CGI stupid shit.
Yeah.
So, like, why would I want to watch that? I think no. Not to say that I wouldn't watch this movie again, but I would just watch the original.
Well, okay. Just one last thing I want, or to tie this into that question, Ben. Is there any Disney movie they haven't remade that you would like to see remade? Like, if you had to, if the mouse put a gun to your temple and said, "Give us an idea for a remake, bitch," haha. Like, is there a Disney film that you would like to see remade, whether it be like hugely popular or something like extremely obscure, like The Cat from Outer Space?
Probably Hercules.
Yeah, I could see them doing that. I could see that being, considering that's like one of the like mid-tier like post-Disney Renaissance films. I could see them remaking that.
I would like them to remake it and like make this like amp up the story a little bit, make the story a little better.
Tighten it up a little bit.
Tighten it up.
Tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, like Zeus's dad, Titan. Anyway, that and there was like a Hercules animated series that was on like one of the Disney channels when I was a kid, and that was pretty cool too. I'd be down for them to just revive that.
Yeah, Hercules is a good pick. I was trying to think of any other ones, but they've done so many, you know. Hercules.
Is Fox to have Disney?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yep.
Do a live action with real foxes and real hounds. None of the CGI Lion King shit.
They would be CGI foxes and hounds,
No.
Ben. Jeez.
No, a real trained fox.
They can't do that because someone would sue them, because like at one point the fox will like be a little hungry, and then like PETA will take an out of context video, and Disney will be sued.
I will sue them for producing a CGI fox. Anyway, sorry, I super interrupted you, Rob. I just had to get that out.
That's good. That's all good. Yeah, I would. I don't know. I think you mentioned Little Mermaid, Zach. Is that the next remake on the docket for them? Are there any others that I haven't heard about? Do you know?
I don't. I know the Little Mermaid is the last like major one for them.
Okay.
I think about it though. Like, what else is there? Like, they're gonna eventually run out of ideas.
Sure, absolutely.
I know it's not Disney, but I want to see a live-action Shrek remake.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead, Rob. Do it, Rob. Go nuts. They already made that, Ben. It's called the Broadway musical.
Oh God.
And just for the record, the actress that's the star of the Little Mermaid, his name is Halle Bailey. Not Halle Berry,
okay.
but Halle Bailey. Which sounds like the weird sort of just like Dollar General version of like Frosted Flakes.
Yeah.
it's the Walmart version.
Yes.
I watch this YouTube series online sometimes where they play Magic, and then one of the guys looks quite a bit like Thor, and he introduced himself as the Chris Hemsworth your mom says you already have at home.
Nice.
All right, Rob, just real quick, not to get too far into the Little Mermaid remake.
Uh-oh.
But if you want to think of the most contrived version of this film possible, guess who is playing Ursula?
Oh God, who would
contrive?
That would be great.
Oh man,
no, more contrived than that.
I know. Oh God.
Think early 2010s level of. Think of who was one of the most popular comedic actresses of the early 2010s. Close. You're very close. Very close.
Ooh. Oh,
think
God.
2000. Where Ben was thinking like late 90s, early 2000s. Think early 2010s. Who was a overweight actress from the early 2010s that exploded in popularity?
Oh God, this is with that last clue. This is going to make it sound worse than me. Actually, I think you're going to say Melissa McCarthy.
Yes.
I don't want anybody to feel that bad that I got it from Zach saying overweight.
Well, she's not overweight anymore. She's like doing the Adele thing, where now like she lost half her weight because she hired a celebrity trainer. But
no,
Rob,
this is fat shaming to lose weight. It is
being healthy is fat.
It's fat phobic to think that you should lose weight so that you can be healthier. That's fat phobia.
Rob, Ben is not wrong. Ben is not wrong. But this is the best part, though, Rob. Guess who is playing Flounder? It's one of our favorite child actors on Cinema.
There's only one that we ever talk about, Jacob Tremblay.
There you go.
How is this going to happen? How is he playing a fish? I don't get this. I fundamentally don't get this, because you talk about like Ursula and Ariel, sure. Flounder is just a fish.
He's Jacob Tremblay, man, and Javier Bardem is King Triton.
That's also like a humanoid type thing. What is Jacob Tremblay going to do to be a fish?
He's going to voice him, Rob. He's going to voice him.
I want to see him in like a fish outfit, you know?
Rob Tusk from like the Kevin Smith movie, but as a fish.
And but this is the true kicker of the Disney is culturally out of tokens. Guess who's doing the soundtrack, Rob? Who is Disney's now go-to musical person?
Is it Beyonce still?
No.
That didn't work out with Lion King?
No, it did not work out. When you think of who's the contemporary music person now, like on the most mainstream platform possible. I've complained about him numerous times on this podcast as being someone who is just creatively bankrupt. But Disney just keeps throwing money at him because he has a hit Broadway stage show.
I know who you mean. I can't. God, why can't I think of
Three names. Oh, Ben, you may answer if you choose. If you choose, not that you have to, but if you may choose.
If you choose, I don't know why. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I know exactly who you're talking about, and it's not coming to me for some reason.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh, of course. That you're absolutely right. They're go-to type of guy for this stuff now. Absolutely.
I didn't realize he was doing a lot of Disney. I mean, I obviously have seen Hamilton and did Disney do In the Heights? Is that a Disney movie?
No, that's HBO.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize he was working with Disney.
Oh yeah, he did Moana, and Moana's been like their weird Moana is like their low-key cash cow. Like that's become one of those movies now where like it's made like it did okay theatrically, But then like it's made I think like it's made them so much money like in a post like theatrical release world that like it's bonkers. Like it took a while for it to catch on, but Moana's like up there now as one of their like top tier like merchandising like properties.
Yeah, I mean Moana was a pretty solid movie, and in a world where they're like we need. Well, and actually, this actually ties into the strong women discussion from whatever the fuck that was. Moana's she's a great strong female character. I like Moana in that light. She's not just a man with long hair.
That's The Rock's character in that movie.
Yeah,
he's a woman with long hair.
Yes, well, yeah.
Right on. Okay, no, I mean Disney live action remakes. If I'm with Ben, don't touch this one. I think just the last thing I wanted to say about that. I don't know if we ever talked about it in any great detail, but when they released The Witches, the 2020 version on Netflix. Or no, HBO Max. It was an HBO Max, one of the early HBO Max things. At the beginning, in like the opening credits or the studio, logos and stuff like that, they do put some type of dark universe-esque, like Roald Dahl universe. Like it looks like that's what they're trying to do. So if James the Giant Peach ever got remade, I think they'd try and wrap it into that fold. But I don't think that's going to go anywhere after. I don't think anybody watched The Witches. But yeah, just in terms of remakes, if we get any more Roald Dahl stuff, I don't know, maybe Disney doesn't have a lot of the rights for like this one or something, and the Warner Brothers would want to say, oh, let's put all these together, that type of thing. Not a good thing, I would say, but I think that's the most likely for this Roald Dahl stuff to pop up anywhere ever again.
Fair.
All right, with that, any other final thoughts on this movie, or are we ready for our questions?
Questions.
Okay.
So many snacks. Cannot wait to delve into the snack meal
There's a lot of snacks. And before that, though, of course, before we get to the restaurant, good old Cinemodities and Late Night. For Cinemodities, I'm going to say yes. I think this is a wonderfully ridiculous fairy tale. It's a great weird movie, and I love just the whole, switch from live action animation, and it's great fun. And kind of for all the same reasons, Late Night, absolutely. A great, 75-minute movie just to, sit through. It's not that long. You get to hear some, songs that you like, get to watch some Henry Selick, so I have to go yes to both. What do you think, Zach, for Cinemodities and Late Night for this one?
I would definitely say yes to Cinemati, this film. There's something just it's one of those films that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like this weird sort of amalgamation of so many things. Like there's so many it's so nonsensical. It has all these weird elements, whether it be Mecha-Shark or the ants driving across the Atlantic Ocean. And the fact that it really doesn't have any rules. It kind of does whatever it wants. Like even we didn't really talk about him too much, but just the Pete Postlethwaite character who shows up as like the fairy godmother, so to speak. And he really is only in the film for 2 scenes. No, definitely a Cinemati. Late night movie, I'm also going to say yes. Because this film is just so short. It's so concise. It's that's the thing too. Like I know a lot of movies, like in the Henry Selick series, even Nightmare Before Christmas. I think Nightmare Before Christmas gets dry very quickly because it's a one-note film. This film kept me constantly engaged. At no point did I take my eyes off the film. There's always something happening. The characters are fun. But yeah, definitely. I'm going to say yes to both.
Right on. And so, Ben, that leaves you. What do you think for this one?
Yes to Oddity. It's enjoyable enough that if there was a child in the room and we had to pick a movie that they could also watch, I would probably suggest this movie. But there's plenty of other stuff I'd rather watch.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm not going to give it the late night. I'm gonna give it a conditional late night. And yes to Cinemodities.
Interesting. Okay, that makes me think of what late night movies do we have that are also acceptable for children? I'm sure we thought of that somewhere along the line. Well, with that then out of the way, we get to the restaurant. And oh boy, as Zach mentioned, there's a whole lot of snacks present in this movie. I think one that I just want to get right off the bat because it's perfect. Like when I saw it, I thought it was perfect. It's a dish of fish heads with potato chip crumbs that we got from the garbage. So I don't know how we are specifically finding potato chip crumbs in the garbage. Maybe, we just go to other places and find just potato bag chips with just a little bit of crumbs and we import them into the restaurant. Haven't really worked out the details, but I love potato chip crumbs and fish heads as something you can order from a menu. And I think also on that topic, a worm hot dog is another weird thing I liked from this movie. I think it's when Mr. Centipede is getting hungry, he sees the earthworm as like the worm in a hot dog bun. But I want our worm hot dog, or maybe even our worm dog, as we call it, to just be a hot dog bun filled with live worms. Like, just wriggling around. And here's the thing. I think somebody would eat that as like a challenge, you know, like eat a bunch of worms as like a I don't know, a dare type of thing. So maybe we put this on the Sin E-Modities portion of the restaurant. And when a kid orders the worm dog, it's because they're being dared to eat a hot dog bun filled with worms. What do we think?
I think that you could go the route of like those steak challenges where people get like a T-shirt if they eat 2 pounds of steak.
Sure.
I think people would do that for a T-shirt. Like, I think adults would do it for a T-shirt. Kids would do it, to be mean to each other, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea now, Ben, that you're eating just an exorbitant amount of food and all you get is, like, a T-shirt, you know? Could you imagine scarfing down, like, a bunch of live worms, and then we're just like, you got a T-shirt, you know? And it's just nothing on the T-shirt. It's just, like, a blank white T-shirt.
Like an AIDS T-shirt?
Yeah.
I think... You know, I mean, given the option from eating 2 pounds of steak for a T-shirt and just printing my own T-shirt online, I'm probably just going to print my own T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. There was some comic I saw once. God, I don't remember how recent it was, but I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Where it's like a couple is on a date and like they have that thing where it's like, you know, eat this giant steak and you get another one free or something like that. And so I think the guy says to the girl, like, you know, oh, hey, you want to do this with me? And she's like, sure. And then it cuts to just the guy eating the giant steak and the woman not eating anything. And the caption on the guy says something like, don't worry, when I'm done in half an hour, then you'll get yours. And I just love the idea of like, I'm doing an eating competition by myself while I'm with somebody else. I just found that hilarious.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Oh man. So okay, and then just another snack that I mentioned earlier that I wanted to throw out was the Pete Postlewaite's recipe for the magic critters. Like I said before, 1,000 crocodile tongues boiled in a skull of a dead witch for 20 days and 20 nights. Then they throw in the fingers of a young monkey, the gizzard of a pig, the beak of a parrot, and 3 spoonfuls of sugar. Let stew for a week, and then let the moon do the rest. And what could go wrong if we just had a bunch of, like, magic crocodile tongues jumping around the restaurant? I see no issues to be taken with that.
My only concern is that it'll take so long to prepare that the profit margin will have to be pretty high to make it worth it.
Ooh, okay. That's fair. You know, we can give a huge charge for these things, absolutely.
I want on record, though, that like much like James and Giant Peach, Cinemati's restaurant does not follow the adherence to like real world rules. The idea of profit margins, the idea that like Cinemati's restaurant does what it wants, regardless of whether the real world confines to it or not.
I'm just saying, this is a board meeting where we're talking about food.
Our accountant hates us for that exact reason. What did you guys have? I had a few more, but of course, you know, there's a whole bunch to throw out here. What did you guys have?
I want little like in the film where Pete Postlewaite makes like the little lantern.
Oh yeah.
Out of the what was it? Fast food bag? I couldn't even tell what it really was. At some point, we see him licking it, which I find.
I think that was the potato chip bag.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Okay. It almost looked like a combination between a fast food bag and like a popcorn like popper bag from like microwavable popcorn.
Sure.
So I think we should do is like if anybody ever orders popcorn in a restaurant, which is insanely weird, but whatever, we don't judge the Cinemati's restaurant. I think we should make little paper lanterns out of like oh god, used microwavable popcorn bags.
Okay.
That is my first snack.
Wait, is there popcorn in like are the lanterns a delivery system or the lanterns just kind of like fly around?
They're decorative. Like it's a way of reusing.
Okay.
The vehicle to make said popcorn. Then after that, like it kind of comes down more to peach flavored snacks.
Of course.
Yeah, I like the idea of just we should have like all sorts of like peach snacks. But what we do is we call them peach, we make them out of apricots.
Ooh.
It's like we sell it's like, oh, it's a peach smoothie. Oh, it's a peach milkshake. Oh, it's a peach cobbler, but they're all made of apricots.
I like where you're going, but I just so deeply hate apricots that's the part I don't like. Maybe that's
fine.
a reason
That's
to
the
use
intent.
them in the restaurant more since I hate them so much.
There you go, Rob. He will suffer.
I mean,
I think we need peach wine, but we have to teach grasshoppers how to make it.
Yes.
Great, so we have to do that with grasshoppers. And then we probably are just going to grind up the grasshoppers and put them in the wine also.
Perfect. No, I like that. We have some type of like grasshopper farm, and they're like, "What do you do with grasshoppers? We use them to make peach wine." Oh man, yeah. My note on the peach was I just wrote down the words "fucking peach everything." Like, I feel like if we have it in the restaurant already, we can just add a peach variety. You know, that type of thing.
Hold on. We need something on the menu called peach. It's however many peaches, 12, 14. And who knows what it is? There's probably no peach in it at all.
Perfect. I like that. I'm also liking now. We should also see if Randy Newman, we can book him to do a performance at the restaurant, and then just be like, we only want you to sing the part where you say peach in James and the Giant Peach, and he'll be like, oh, the eating the peach song. And we go, yeah, that song, but just the parts where you say peach.
And now that I'm thinking about it, there should be a bunch of different items that are all just the word peach over and over again, but they're different amounts. And if you say the wrong amount of items, you'll get a different menu item option. So, like, you'll be like, I'll have the peach, and then you say it like 13 times, and that's like a steak or something. And like, I'll have the peach, you say it 15 times, and like, that's like a vegetarian lasagna. You know what I'm saying? Like, very different.
Nice. I like this idea also because it puts so much... Like, there's so many points of failure, like a customer could order, like, the peach, thinking it's the peach, but then the waiter might write down 5 peaches instead, and then the cook might not be able to read how many peaches were on there. I love it, Ben. There's so much that could go wrong. It's like playing a game of telephone when you order your food,
Definitely. Well, and I'm just imagining somebody, like, you're at a menu and you're like, oh, I'll have the, and then you look at the menu to read the item. Like, I'm just imagining someone be like, I'll have the peach. And then they're like, hold on, did I count that right? Like, and just, anyway, so every point of failure.
I also, I want somebody to go into the restaurant and be like, which peach menu item is just one peach? And they'll be like, that's the one that you have to say peach 846 times for. Nothing of that is easy. That's great. That's great. I mean, even in the peach song, when they sing it, all the insects are singing about like other things they've eaten, which is just like crazy because they're bugs and stuff like that. I think Mrs. Ladybug's bug says something like, a plate of soil with engine oil is a super recipe. And so there's just like a bunch of little things in there that I just wanted to just touch on, and that one's good. I think Mr. Grasshopper says something like, hot noodles made of poodles on a slice of garden hose, and a rather smelly jelly made of armadillo's toes. Like, when I hear that song, I'm just like, this is it. This is what the restaurant was created for, like earwigs cooked in slime. And Zach, we can put a peach variant on all of these.
Sweet.
When I think of things we have in our restaurant that we could add a peach variant to, good old cigarettes. Imagine peach cigarettes.
Ooh, now that's sexy.
They make like peach flavored little cigars. Like
yeah, but see, do they do it the way that we would do it, Ben? Which is where we would have the cigarette, the cigarillo, whatever. And then we would dip it in like a peach jelly and then give it to the person. Like, it's not peach infused, it's peach dipped.
Is that like we give it to them still wet?
Yes, and like, why are my cigarettes wet? And they'd be like, that's a jelly right there. I'll have you now.
It's not water, that's jelly. It's just like wet clearly means only with water. I like it. I think that we should also sell some cigarettes that are just stored near some peaches.
Okay.
Like LaCroix water, where it's like the guy who canned this was thinking about a banana. Like, that's the level of flavor you're getting. Like, we're gonna have like these cigarettes are stored near the peaches.
Okay. And are you saying we like advertise that as some like point of pride? Like when they say like farm to table stuff, we're like, these cigarettes we're near some peaches.
Yeah, definitely.
What's so special about your cigarettes? Well, hear me out. We keep them near peaches.
Yeah, we unbox them, we stack them up in like a pyramid, and then we put them next to the peach pyramid.
Perfect.
It's a pyramid of cigarettes and peaches.
I like it. And then, maybe we'll have like this, I don't know, sense of randomization to throw your idea in there, Zach, is where if somebody orders the peach variety, there's some like chance that they'll get it to be peach or apricot or something like that.
Sure, that works for me.
Or any other fruit. Like it might be like strawberry. Yeah, I ordered peach. It's like that's the fucking chance you take when you order peach in this restaurant.
Yes, it could be any other fruit. Oh God. No, that's good. Any other snacks did you guys have?
I don't think so. I think it's. Did we mention fish heads at all? Like,
fish heads, potato chips.
Fish head and potato chip crumbs.
Fish,
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that for the fish head and potato chip crumbs, we should have a variant where we actually bread the fish head in potato chip crumbs and then deep fry it in peach juice.
Oh.
Deep fried in peach juice. Now that we should be advertising.
We figured out how to make peach grease and we deep fry fish heads.
Yes, I like that. No, I like that, and also I'm thinking maybe we should source our fish heads by getting our hands on one of those Mecha-Sharks.
Mecha-Sharks, yeah.
I would love to have a Cinemodities branded Mecha-Shark somewhere out in the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, definitely.
I think also if somebody ever says peach 846 times or 847 times, because like that's the regular peach. 847 is a peach on an Empire State Building prop, like a little toy.
Oh,
so it's like a kid's meal. It's like a peach with the toy, but the toy is just a building.
I like that when you get up to this level of having to say the same word so many times and that the actual count matters to what you're ordering. It's like you're getting in this weird verbal contract with the restaurant. It's just a strange thing.
Like 753 could be like you're ordering someone to come kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
like it's definitely like a Russian roulette situation.
Yes. Oh, I dig it for sure. That'll be the next thing, people like trying to figure out what all the different amounts of peach come out to in the restaurant.
Well, and then like we could also have some items that are like the word peach. So it's just like every single word I'm going to say is what's written on the menu. Peach 853 times. So that you can't shortcut it. So like if you just say to the waiter, I want peach 853 times, like that's a different item than saying peach individually 853 times.
Yes. Absolutely.
Like making this as difficult as possible.
Yep, 100%. Oh, that's some good stuff. Well, then, with that out of the way, if there's nothing else, we have now reached the end of the second Henry Selick film. We won't be discussing his third next week because we did it way back in the 2001 Fort year with Monkey Bone. So next week we are jumping right into his final film, or the last film that exists from him as we know so far. Like we said, hopefully we'll get more good ones. But it's Coraline. Ben and I are going to discuss Coraline. She is one of my best friends, and we will get to discuss that completely next week. I'm excited for it. What do you think, Zach? You excited for Coraline?
I'm so excited for something I won't be there for.
Yes.
Rob is going to spend a lot of time hitting on a fictional 11-year-old.
Oh, man. And, well, then... tune in for that. Really get him excited, man. With that being said, go on over, check out the Cinemodities Patreon, as always, not only to hear more great content, but to get that extra little bonus on Henry Selick and all the other stuff, and to support the podcast as well. Shoot us an email, cinemodities@gmail.com, head on over to the Reddit, reddit.com/r/cinemodities, and harass us. Let us know what you think. Are you glad the Fort year's over? Are you glad we're doing something different? You want to go back to 2001? I know Zach does. He leaves that review every time we talk about something past the Fort year. But Ben, is there anywhere people can find you or anything you want to pitch at the end of this one?
You can email me at rocketbearapps@gmail.com, and you can find my apps by searching Rocket Bear Apps in the Play Store. That's probably the fastest way to find my apps. But if you play Magic, Commander, or otherwise, and you need a life counter that will keep stats for you, and I'm talking mad stat tracking, so you can know how your decks are doing and know what they're losing to. Come check it out. It is the best life counter app on the market, and I don't just say that because I wrote it.
Mad Stats. Yes, I will put the link in the show notes. And Zach, since we won't have you here next week, is there anything you wanted to advertise, or are you still reeling from the thoughts of the Fort year?
I am dying from the idea of Henry Selick and the Shadow King. R.I.P. The Shadow King.
Yes. So, okay, with that out of the way, next week, Coraline, I think we have to play one of the songs that we have in this movie in reverse. I think the one I was leaning towards was That's the Life for Me, because that's probably my favorite. Any strong feelings on the songs that should be used in reverse at the end of this episode? From anybody? Ever?
Not really.
Rob's just like crying inside. They never want to do the backwards songs. It's okay. It's how I feel whenever they do an episode without me. So it's the feeling's mutual. No, I think the Life for Me or whatever you said, that's probably fine.
And I will sing it. Here we go. No.